In 250 AD, while Rome is at its peak, deep in the jungles of Central America, another civilization is quietly becoming one of the most sophisticated societies the world has ever seen. They're building cities that house hundreds of thousands of people, creating art that rivals the Renaissance masters, and making astronomical calculations so precise they could predict eclipses thousands of years into the future. This is the story of the Maya, not just their rise and fall, but the entire epic journey of an empire that left behind mysteries we're still trying to solve today. From blood-soaked ball courts to towering pyramids that pierce the jungle canopy, we're about to uncover how this remarkable civilization shaped the very foundations of human knowledge. But before we dive in, if you're new to this channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button if you find this type of content helps you learn something new. Also, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is. We'd love to hear from you. So, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? The sky above, the stones below. Deep in the jungle, where morning mist clings to ancient stones, something stirs in the shadows. Vines wrap around towering pyramids like gentle embraces. Roots push through palace floors where kings once walked. The forest has reclaimed what was once a mighty empire. Moonlight filters through the canopy, casting silver patterns across weathered glyphs. These symbols once told stories of gods and heroes, of wars and celebrations. Now they whisper secrets to the night wind. Each carving holds a memory. Each temple guards a mystery. Who built these soaring monuments? What drove them to reach so high toward the stars? The Maya created cities that rivaled Rome. They calculated time with precision that amazes us today. They wrote books filled with wisdom and poetry. Then, suddenly, many of their greatest cities fell silent. But this is not a story of endings. It is a tale of beginnings that never truly stopped. The Maya people still live among us. Their descendants still speak the ancient languages. They still plant corn using methods their ancestors perfected thousands of years ago. Walk with us through jade-green jungles where jaguars once prowled palace courtyards. Listen to the echoes of ball games played for the gods themselves. Feel the smooth stone beneath your feet as we climb temple steps that touch the sky. The Maya saw time as circles within circles. Every day was sacred. Every year brought new ceremonies. Every age carried forward the wisdom of those who came before. They believed the world had been created and destroyed multiple times. Each rebirth brought new possibilities. Tonight, we begin their story again. From the misty highlands of Guatemala to the white beaches of the Yucatan, their legacy spreads like morning light. In every carved stone, in every surviving codex, in every prayer still whispered in Mayan languages, their voices reach across the centuries. The jungle keeps its secrets well. Archaeologists have spent lifetimes uncovering just fragments of what once was. Each discovery reveals new wonders. Underground rivers flow beneath pyramid foundations. Painted murals show scenes of daily life from 1,000 years ago. Jade masks protect the faces of long-dead rulers. Look up at the night sky. The same stars that guided Maya astronomers still shine above us. The same moon phases that marked their sacred calendar continue their ancient dance. Venus still rises as the morning star, just as it did when Maya priests tracked its journey across the heavens. This is a civilization that saw mathematics as poetry. They created the concept of zero independently from the old world. Their calendars were more accurate than those used in Europe at the same time. They predicted eclipses centuries in advance. They mapped the movements of planets with remarkable precision. But they were not just scientists and mathematicians. They were artists who painted their history on walls that still glow with brilliant colors. They were poets who wrote epic tales of creation and heroism. They were architects who built cities that seemed to float above the jungle canopy. The Maya understood that everything is connected. The movements of the planets influenced the fate of kingdoms. The cycles of corn growth reflected the rhythms of human life. The underworld, the earth, and the sky were all part of one great cosmic dance. Their story begins in mystery and ends in wonder. Between these bookends lies a tale of human achievement that few civilizations have matched. They were people who dreamed in stone and calculated in jade. They were farmers who fed millions and kings who commanded vast networks of tribute and trade. As we journey through their history, we will meet remarkable individuals. Pakal ruled Palenke for nearly 70 years. Lady Six Sky commanded armies and built monuments to her victories. The hero twins descended into the underworld to defeat the lords of death itself. We will witness the rise of great cities. Tikal's pyramids pierce the forest canopy like green mountains. Copan's stelae stand like stone books telling the stories of dynasties. Chichen Itza's Great Pyramid captures the shadow of the feathered serpent twice each year. The Maya never truly vanished. When Spanish conquistadors arrived, expecting to find primitives in the jungle, they instead encountered sophisticated kingdoms with libraries, schools, and complex governments. The last independent Maya city did not fall until 1697, long after the Aztec and Inca empires had crumbled. Even today, Maya wisdom flows through the modern world. Their knowledge of medicine, agriculture, and astronomy continues to influence contemporary science. Their artistic traditions thrive in the hands of their descendants. Their languages carry forward stories that began in the mists of prehistory. The stones remember everything. The sky watches patiently, and somewhere in the green heart of the jungle, new discoveries wait to be uncovered. Each season brings archaeologists face to face with wonders that reshape our understanding of this remarkable civilization. Tonight, let the rhythm of rain on temple stones carry you into dreams of a world where time moves in circles, where jade is worth more than gold, and where the boundary between earth and sky dissolves in the smoke of sacred fires. The Maya built their cities to last forever. In a way, they succeeded. Their pyramids still reach toward the stars. Their calendars still mark the passage of time. Their descendants still call the jungle home. The empire never truly ended. It simply transformed like morning mist becoming afternoon clouds. Rest now. Tomorrow we will journey deeper into their world, where myths come alive and history becomes legend. Creation myths and cosmic wars. Before the first dawn, before the first breath of wind, there was only darkness and still water. The gods floated in this endless quiet, dreaming of what might be. They spoke, and mountains rose from the depths. They whispered, and forests grew thick with life. This is how the Maya told the story of creation, not once, but many times. Each world that came before had failed in some way. The wooden people were too stiff and had no hearts. The mud people dissolved in the rain. Each attempt taught the gods something new about what it meant to be human. The Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Maya, tells these stories with the gentle rhythm of rain on leaves. It speaks of trials and mistakes, of gods who laugh and cry just like mortals do. These were not distant, perfect beings. They were craftsmen working with clay and dreams, trying again and again to create something beautiful. In the beginning, the world was flat and square, held up at its corners by 4 great trees. Each tree had its own color and direction: red for the east, where the sun is born each day; white for the north, land of cold winds and ancestors; black for the west, where the sun dies each evening; yellow for the south, realm of warmth and growth. Above stretched 13 layers of heaven, each one home to different gods and spirits. Below lay 9 levels of the underworld, dark and mysterious, but not evil. Death was simply another part of the great cycle, like winter giving way to spring. The gods needed helpers to tend their creation. They tried making servants from mud, but these melted away. They carved others from wood, but these had no souls and could not properly worship their makers. The wooden people forgot their creators and lived shallow, empty lives. Angry at this ingratitude, the gods sent a great flood. Animals turned against their wooden masters. Even household objects came alive to punish them. Pots and pans beat the wooden people. Dogs and turkeys, so long mistreated, had their revenge. Only a few escaped by climbing into trees, where they became monkeys. Finally, the gods discovered the secret ingredient: corn. They ground white and yellow kernels into dough and shaped this into the bodies of the first true humans. These corn people were perfect. They could see far across the world. They understood the movements of the stars. They knew the names of all the gods. But the corn people were too perfect. They rivaled their creators in wisdom and sight. The gods grew worried. What if these humans became too powerful? What if they forgot to show proper respect? So the gods breathed mist across human eyes, clouding their vision just enough. People could still see wonders, but not everything at once. They would need to work and learn and discover. This limitation was actually a gift. for it made life a journey of constant surprise and growth. The hero twins entered this newly made world as champions of order and justice. Their names were Hunahpu and Palenke, and they were destined for greatness from the moment of their birth. Their father and uncle had been skilled ball players who made too much noise during their games. The lords of Xibalba, the underworld, grew annoyed by the constant sound of bouncing rubber balls above their heads. They invited the brothers to come below and play a game, but this was a trap. The Death Lords killed the brothers and buried their bodies beneath the ball court. One day, the severed head of the father spoke to a young woman passing by the calabash tree where it hung. She reached out her hand, and the head spat into her palm. This made her pregnant with the hero twins, who would grow up to avenge their father and uncle. Hunahpu and Palenke were clever children who delighted in tricks and games. They could transform into any shape they wished. Sometimes they were monkeys swinging through trees. Other times they became jaguars prowling the night. Their grandmother, who raised them, never knew what to expect. When the twins grew strong enough, they too began playing ball in the court above Xibalba. Once again, the Death Lords grew angry at the noise. Once again, they sent invitations for a friendly game below. But the hero twins were ready for the challenge. The Lords of Xibalba were masters of deception. They had names like One Death and Seven Death, Bloodgatherer and Pussmaster. Their realm was filled with dangerous trials. Houses made of knives that cut everything they touched. Chambers filled with hungry jaguars and poisonous bats. Rivers of blood and pus that had to be crossed. But the twins were cleverer than their father had been. When offered a seat on a burning bench, they politely declined. When given cigars that had to burn all night without being consumed, they attached fireflies to the tips to fool the Death Lords. Each test they passed with wit and courage. The final trial was the ball game itself. The twins played magnificently, but they let the Death Lords win the first match. Then they allowed themselves to be sacrificed and ground up like corn. Their bones were thrown into a river, but instead of dying, they were reborn as catfish, then as wandering performers. Disguised as humble entertainers, the twins returned to Xibalba and amazed the Death Lords with magical dances. They could cut each other apart and bring each other back to life. They could burn down houses and restore them instantly. The Death Lords demanded to experience these wonders themselves. The twins were happy to oblige. They sacrificed One Death and Seven Death, but this time they did not bring them back to life. The other lords fled in terror. The power of death had been broken, not destroyed, but transformed. From that day forward, death would be balanced by resurrection. Every ending would carry the seed of a new beginning. The hero twins rose into the sky and became the sun and moon. Their victory made it safe for corn people to live and multiply across the world. The underworld still existed, but it was no longer a place of pure terror. It became part of the natural cycle like night following day. Maya kings claimed descent from these divine heroes. Every ruler was expected to journey into the underworld and emerge victorious, just as the twins had done. Royal tombs were designed as portals to Xibalba, complete with painted scenes of the Lords of Death. But the twins' greatest gift was teaching humans that cleverness and courage could overcome any obstacle. They showed that even death could be defeated by those who understood the true nature of sacrifice and renewal. Every corn harvest repeated their victory. Every sunrise announced their triumph over darkness. This was not just mythology to the Maya. It was the fundamental truth about how the universe worked. Time moved in cycles, like the twins' journey from death to rebirth. Every full moon was Palenke returning to visit the earth. Every dawn was Hunahpu beginning the day's journey across the sky. The stories lived in every ceremony, every planting season, every child's bedtime tale. They were painted on palace walls and carved into temple stones. They were the foundation upon which all other Maya knowledge was built, as essential as corn to the survival of the people. In the gentle repetition of these myths, spoken around countless fires across countless generations, the Maya found their place in the vast cosmos. They were the corn people, created with love and wisdom, blessed with just enough mystery to make life an endless adventure. The first sparks, Archaic roots, 2000 BCE to 1000 BCE. Long before the first pyramid rose above the jungle canopy, Small groups of people wandered through the forests and mountains of what we now call Mesoamerica. They followed deer paths and river valleys, carrying everything they owned in woven baskets and leather pouches. Their lives moved with the rhythm of seasons and the migration patterns of animals. These early people were not struggling to survive. They were learning to thrive. The land provided generously for those who understood its gifts. Wild fruits ripened in sequence throughout the year. Nuts and seeds could be gathered and stored. Small game was plentiful, and the rivers teemed with fish. Women discovered which plants could heal and which could harm. They learned to weave fibers into cloth and baskets. They ground pigments from flowers and clay to paint their bodies for ceremonies. Their knowledge grew slowly, passed from mother to daughter like precious heirlooms. Men became skilled hunters and toolmakers. They crafted obsidian blades sharper than modern steel. They knew the habits of every animal in their territory. They could track a deer for days through dense forest, reading signs invisible to untrained eyes. Their respect for the animals they hunted was deep and sincere. But the most important discovery happened quietly, almost by accident. Someone noticed that the wild grasses they gathered for their seeds grew taller and fuller in places where old campsites had been. The ash from cooking fires and the scraps of food had enriched the soil. This observation led to experiments. What if they deliberately scattered seeds in cleared areas? What if they tended these patches like gardens? Slowly, over many generations, they learned to encourage the growth of useful plants while discouraging weeds and pests. The transformation of wild teosinte into corn was perhaps the greatest achievement in human history. The original plant looked nothing like the golden ears we know today. Its seeds were tiny and scattered along a brittle stalk. Each kernel was wrapped in a tough case that made them difficult to harvest and eat. Through patient selection over hundreds of years, early farmers chose the plants with the largest seeds and the most convenient arrangement. They saved the best kernels from each harvest to plant the following year. Gradually, the plant changed in response to human needs and preferences. Corn became the foundation of everything that followed. Unlike wheat or rice, which could support small villages, corn was productive enough to feed cities. A single plant could yield hundreds of kernels. The grain could be stored for years without spoiling. It could be prepared in countless ways, from simple porridge to complex ceremonial drinks. The first permanent villages appeared around 3,500 years ago, small clusters of houses built near the best farming areas. These settlements were usually located on elevated ground near rivers or springs. The houses were simple but comfortable, with walls of wood and mud and roofs thatched with palm fronds. Life in these early villages followed patterns that would persist for thousands of years. Families worked together to clear fields and plant crops. Everyone shared in the harvests and participated in the ceremonies that marked the passing seasons. Children learned by watching and helping, gradually taking on more responsibilities as they grew. The development of pottery marked another crucial step forward. Clay vessels allowed people to store grain more safely and cook food in new ways. The earliest pots were simple and functional, but they quickly became canvases for artistic expression. Potters began decorating their work with geometric patterns and stylized animal figures. These ceramic styles became signatures of different communities. A broken pot found centuries later could tell archaeologists which group had made it and approximately when. The patterns were not random decorations, but symbols with specific meanings, early attempts to record important information in permanent form. Trade networks began to develop as villages specialized in different crafts. Communities near obsidian sources became expert toolmakers. Those with access to good clay became renowned potters. Groups living near salt deposits or colorful stones found eager customers for their products. These trading relationships were more than simple economic exchanges. They created bonds between communities and spread new ideas across vast distances. A potter might learn a new decorative technique from a visiting trader. A toolmaker might discover a better way to work obsidian from someone who lived near different volcanic sources. The movement of goods also meant the movement of stories, songs, and religious ideas. Certain symbols began appearing on pottery across wide areas, suggesting shared beliefs or ceremonies. The foundations of what would become Maya civilization were being laid through these peaceful connections between villages. Social differences gradually appeared within communities. Some families accumulated more goods than others. Certain individuals gained reputations as skilled craftspeople, successful traders, or wise leaders. These distinctions were subtle at first, but they marked the beginning of social hierarchy. The dead were buried with increasing ceremony. Important individuals received more elaborate funerals and were interred with valuable goods. Some graves contained jade ornaments, obsidian tools, and decorated pottery. These burial practices reveal growing beliefs about the afterlife and the status of different people within society. Religious practices became more complex and formal. Special buildings were constructed for ceremonies. Priests or shamans emerged as intermediaries between the human and spirit worlds. The calendar systems that would later become incredibly sophisticated had their roots in these early attempts to mark sacred days and seasonal festivals. The landscape itself began to change under human influence. Forests were cleared for fields and villages. Wetlands were drained or modified for agriculture. Hills were terraced to create level planting areas. The Maya were not just adapting to their environment, they were actively reshaping it to meet their needs. This period of gradual change laid the groundwork for everything that would follow. The techniques of farming, pottery making, and tool production were refined. The social structures that would support kings and priests were taking shape. The trade networks that would connect distant cities were being established. Most importantly, the Maya were developing their distinctive worldview. They were learning to see the universe as an interconnected system where human actions affect natural forces and vice versa. This understanding would guide their approach to science, art, religion, and government for thousands of years to come. By 1000 BCE, the Maya were no longer simple villagers. They had become sophisticated farmers, skilled craftspeople, and organized communities. They had transformed their environment and been transformed by it. The stage was set for the rise of the first great cities and the flowering of one of the world's most remarkable civilizations. The seeds of greatness were planted in these quiet centuries of growth and learning. Like corn kernels carefully selected and planted in rich soil, the achievements of these early people would eventually grow into the towering monuments and sophisticated knowledge systems that still amaze us today. The Olmec Shadow. Far to the west, along the steamy coastal plains of the Gulf of Mexico, a mysterious people were creating wonders that would influence all of Mesoamerica. The Olmec emerged from the swamplands like a dream made manifest, carving colossal heads from volcanic stone and building ceremonial centers that reached toward the sky. These were not the ancestors of the Maya, but they were something equally important: their teachers and inspiration. The Olmec developed the first writing systems, the first accurate calendars, and the first complex religious ceremonies in the Americas. Their influence spread like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. The Maya watched and learned. Olmec traders carried more than jade and obsidian along the ancient paths. They brought ideas that would transform simple farming villages into sophisticated cities. They showed that human societies could achieve things that seemed impossible, that people could work together to create monuments that would outlast centuries. La Venta, the greatest Olmec center, rose from marshland like a green mountain. Its builders moved millions of tons of earth to create pyramids and plazas. They carved drainage systems that still function today. They laid out their city according to astronomical principles, aligning important buildings with the movements of stars and planets. The famous Olmec heads remain enigmatic even today. Each one is unique, carved with such skill that they seem almost alive. Some weigh as much as 40 tons. They were transported over distances that boggle the mind, moved from quarries to ceremonial centers without wheels or large animals. The effort required suggests these were portraits of rulers so important that entire populations labored to honor them. But the Olmec gave the Maya much more than artistic inspiration. They developed the first complex calendar system in the Americas, tracking multiple cycles of time with mathematical precision. This calendar would later be refined by the Maya into the most accurate timekeeping system in the ancient world. The Olmec also pioneered the use of writing for permanent records. Their glyphs were simple compared to later Maya texts, but they established the principle that language could be captured in stone and clay. Ideas could outlive the people who created them. History could be preserved for future generations. Religious concepts flowed eastward along with trade goods. The Olmec worshipped a feathered serpent deity that would later become central to Maya beliefs. They performed ball games with rubber balls in specially constructed courts. They practiced bloodletting ceremonies to honor the gods and maintain cosmic balance. The Maya absorbed these influences but transformed them into something uniquely their own. They took Olmec calendar concepts and made them more precise. They expanded on Olmec writing systems until they could record everything from historical events to poetry. They adopted Olmec religious ideas but wove them into their own mythological traditions. Olmec merchants were welcome visitors in early Maya settlements. They brought exotic goods from distant lands, seashells from both oceans, volcanic glass from highland quarries, jade from secret sources deep in the mountains. These materials became symbols of prestige and power, marking the graves of important individuals. The exchange was not one-sided. Maya communities had their own specialties to offer. They were skilled woodworkers who carved intricate masks and ceremonial objects. They cultivated unique varieties of corn and other crops. They had access to rare minerals and colorful stones that Olmec elites prized for their beauty and symbolic meaning. These trading relationships created a network of communication that spanned hundreds of miles. New techniques and ideas spread rapidly from one community to another. A potter in Guatemala might learn decorating methods invented on the Mexican coast. A farmer in Belize might adopt planting techniques developed in highland valleys. The Olmec introduction of monumental architecture inspired Maya communities to attempt their own construction projects. The first Maya temples were modest compared to later achievements, but they represented a crucial step forward. Communities were learning to organize large groups of workers for projects that served the common good. Stone carving techniques also spread from Olmec centers to Maya territories. Local artists began experimenting with their own sculptural traditions, creating stelae and monuments that recorded important events and honored deceased rulers. These early carvings were simpler than later masterpieces, but they established traditions that would flourish for centuries. The concept of divine kingship, so central to later Maya civilization, may have originated with the Olmec. Their colossal heads suggest rulers who commanded enormous respect and resources. Maya chiefs began to model themselves on these distant examples, claiming supernatural powers and commissioning impressive monuments to their reigns. But the Maya were never mere imitators. They took Olmec innovations and adapted them to their own needs and environment. Olmec ceremonial centers were built in swamplands. Maya cities would rise in jungles and on mountainsides. Olmec art emphasized powerful, sometimes frightening deities. Maya art would celebrate a more diverse pantheon with both fearsome and nurturing aspects. The relationship between Olmec and Maya civilizations demonstrates how cultural development rarely occurs in isolation. Great achievements build upon previous discoveries, spreading through contact and trade. The Maya were fortunate to emerge during a time when Olmec innovations were available to inspire and guide their own development. As Olmec civilization eventually declined, the Maya continued to flourish and expand. They had learned the lessons their predecessors offered, but were not dependent on continued Olmec influence. The seeds planted by cultural exchange had taken root in Maya soil and were growing into something magnificent and entirely their own. The Olmec shadow was long and influential, but it was a shadow that nurtured growth rather than blocking light. It provided the Maya with tools and concepts they needed to build their own remarkable civilization. Without this early inspiration, Maya achievements might have taken much longer to develop or might have taken entirely different forms. By the time the great Olmec centers were abandoned, Maya communities were ready to build their own monuments and develop their own traditions. They carried forward the best of what they had learned while adding innovations that reflected their unique understanding of the world and their place within it. The conversation between civilizations had begun, and it would continue for thousands of years. Each generation would build upon the achievements of those who came before, creating new wonders while preserving ancient wisdom. The Olmec had shown what was possible. Now it was time for the Maya to show what they could achieve. The rise of Nojpeten and El Mirador, 1000 BCE to 200 CE. Deep in the heart of the Petén rainforest, where morning mist clings to ancient cecropia trees, the Maya began building their first great cities. The land here was challenging. Low-lying swamps that flooded during the rainy season, dense jungle that fought back against every attempt to clear it. But the Maya saw opportunity where others might see only obstacles. They understood that the seasonal floods brought rich soil down from the highlands. The seemingly impenetrable forest provided everything they needed: timber for construction, game for food, medicinal plants for healing, and materials for countless crafts. Most importantly, the scattered low hills called bajos offered elevated ground for permanent settlements. Nojpeten emerged first around 1000 BCE as communities began clustering around particularly favorable locations. The early builders were still learning, experimenting with techniques that would later be perfected by their descendants. Their first temples were modest structures, but they represented something revolutionary: the decision to invest enormous amounts of labor in permanent monuments. These early pyramids were not built all at once. Each generation added new layers, enlarging and beautifying the structures their ancestors had begun. Children grew up seeing the temples grow taller year by year. They understood that they were participating in projects that would outlast their own lifetimes, creating legacy monuments for future generations. The effort required was staggering. Every stone had to be cut by hand using tools of obsidian and flint. Every basket of filled dirt had to be carried up steep slopes by human labor. There were no wheels, no large animals to help with the work. Success depended entirely on organization, cooperation, and shared vision. As Nojpeten grew in size and importance, it began to attract people from surrounding areas. Skilled craftspeople came to work on the great construction projects. Traders arrived with exotic goods from distant regions. Priests and astronomers were drawn by the city's growing reputation as a center of learning and ceremony. The population growth created new challenges and opportunities. More people meant more hands for construction work, but also more mouths to feed. The Maya responded by developing increasingly sophisticated agricultural techniques. They learned to manage water flow through canals and reservoirs. They experimented with raised fields that could produce crops even during flood seasons. By 600 BCE, an even grander project was beginning just a few miles away. El Mirador would eventually become the largest Maya city of the pre-classic period, with pyramids that rivaled those of Egypt in size and complexity. The Great Pyramid of El Mirador rose over 200 feet above the forest floor, visible from miles away even today. The scale of El Mirador defies easy comprehension. The city covered more than 25 square miles and may have housed over 100,000 people at its peak. The central ceremonial complex alone required moving millions of cubic feet of stone and fill. The largest structures were built according to precise mathematical proportions that reflected Maya understanding of cosmic harmony. These were not just piles of stone, but carefully engineered monuments. The builders understood principles of load distribution and structural stability that would not be rediscovered in Europe for centuries. They created internal chambers and passages that served both practical and ceremonial purposes. They incorporated drainage systems that protected the structures from tropical downpours. The cities were connected by raised roads called sakbeab, Maya highways that allowed rapid communication and trade across vast distances. These roads were engineering marvels, running straight as arrows through swamps and jungles. Some were over 100 miles long and wide enough for large groups to travel side by side. Building and maintaining the sakbeab required sophisticated planning and organization. Work crews had to coordinate their efforts across multiple communities. Materials had to be transported from quarries to construction sites. The finished roads had to be regularly maintained to prevent damage from weather and vegetation. The existence of these road networks reveals the emergence of complex political relationships between Maya centers. Cities were no longer isolated communities, but parts of larger systems of trade, alliance, and mutual support. News and innovations could spread rapidly along the Sakbeab, accelerating cultural development throughout the region. El Mirador's rulers commanded resources and loyalty on an unprecedented scale. They could organize massive construction projects that required the cooperation of thousands of workers over many years. They could commission art and architecture that proclaimed their power and legitimacy to both their subjects and foreign visitors. The concept of divine kingship was becoming firmly established. Rulers were not merely successful war leaders or wise administrators, but intermediaries between the human and divine worlds. They performed ceremonies that maintained cosmic balance. Their tombs were designed as gateways to the underworld, equipped with everything needed for the journey to the realm of the gods. Elite burials from this period reveal the growing sophistication of Maya society. Kings were interred with jade masks, obsidian blades, and ceramic vessels filled with food for the afterlife. Their tombs were painted with scenes from Maya mythology, particularly stories about the hero twins and their adventures in the underworld. The development of kingship was accompanied by increasing social stratification. Society was becoming divided into distinct classes: the royal family and high nobility, priests and scribes, skilled craftspeople and merchants, and common farmers and laborers. Each group had its own roles, responsibilities, and privileges within the larger community. Art and architecture reflected these social divisions. Royal palaces featured elaborate facades and spacious courtyards. Elite residences were built near the ceremonial centers and decorated with carved stone and painted stucco. Common people lived in simpler houses scattered throughout the city and in surrounding agricultural areas. The artistic achievements of this period were remarkable. Sculptors created massive stone masks that adorned temple facades. These were not abstract decorations, but portraits of gods and rulers, rendered with skill that brings them to life even today. The craftsmanship required suggests workshops of specialists who dedicated their lives to perfecting their art. Painters were developing techniques that would later reach their full flowering at sites like Bonampak. They experimented with mineral pigments that could survive the humid tropical climate. They learned to prepare wall surfaces that would hold paint for centuries. Their work transformed temple interiors into galleries of mythological and historical scenes. The astronomical knowledge of Maya priests was becoming increasingly sophisticated. They built observatories that allowed precise tracking of planetary movements. They calculated the length of the solar year with greater accuracy than contemporary European calendars. They predicted eclipses and identified patterns in celestial events that influenced timing of ceremonies and political decisions. Mathematics was advancing alongside astronomy. The Maya developed positional notation and the concept of zero independently from Old World civilizations. Their numerical system was elegant and efficient, well suited for the complex calculations required by their calendar systems and architectural projects. Writing was evolving from simple pictographs to a full script capable of recording complex ideas. Early inscriptions were brief and formal, mainly recording dates and the names of rulers. But the potential for more elaborate text was becoming apparent as scribes experimented with new ways to represent sounds and concepts. By 200 CE, the foundations of classic Maya civilization were firmly in place. Cities like El Mirador had demonstrated that the Maya could organize and sustain complex urban societies. They had developed the political, religious, and technological innovations that would support even greater achievements in the centuries to come. The rise of these early cities represents one of humanity's great experiments in civilization. Starting with simple farming villages, the Maya had created urban centers that could house tens of thousands of people. They had learned to coordinate massive public works projects and maintain complex trade networks spanning hundreds of miles. Most remarkably, they had achieved all this while maintaining harmony with their natural environment. Their cities were integrated into the landscape rather than imposed upon it. They worked with seasonal flood cycles rather than fighting them. They saw themselves as partners with the forest rather than its conquerors. The success of Nojpeten and El Mirador proved that Maya civilization was ready for its next phase of development. The Knowledge, techniques, and social structures pioneered in these early cities would spread throughout the Maya world, inspiring new centers and supporting an explosion of cultural achievement that would continue for centuries. Gods, glyphs, and blood. In the cool hours before dawn, when the forest holds its breath between night and day, Maya priests climbed the steep steps of their temple pyramids. They carried obsidian blades and strips of bark paper, jade pins, and burning copal incense. At the summit, as the first light touched the eastern horizon, they would perform the ceremonies that kept the world in balance. Blood was the currency of the gods, not from cruelty or savagery, but from profound understanding of cosmic relationships. To the Maya, blood carried the essence of life itself. When offered freely and reverently, it could nourish the deities who maintained the sun's daily journey, the rains that fed the crops, and the cycles that governed all existence. Kings and queens pierced their tongues and earlobes with jade-tipped awls. They drew stingray spines through their flesh and caught the drops on bark paper. When the bloodied paper was burned, the smoke carried their offerings upward to the realm of the gods. This was not torture, but communion, a sacred dialogue between earth and sky. The ceremonies were precisely timed according to astronomical observations. Venus rising as the morning star was particularly significant. This bright planet, called Noek by the Maya, was associated with war and renewal. Kings often timed their battles and coronations to coincide with specific phases of Venus's complex cycle. Maya priests were the astronomers and mathematicians of their society. They spent years learning to calculate the movements of celestial bodies with remarkable precision. Their observatories were built into temple structures with carefully positioned windows and doorways that framed important stars and planets at crucial moments. The development of writing allowed these priests to record their observations and preserve their knowledge for future generations. Maya glyphs began as pictures, but evolved into a sophisticated system that could capture the full complexity of spoken language. A single inscription might record historical events, astronomical data, and mythological references all woven together. Learning to read and write was a privilege reserved for the elite. Young nobles spent years memorizing hundreds of glyphs and learning the complex rules that governed their combination. They practiced on pottery sherds and bark paper before being allowed to carve important texts in stone. Scribes held respected positions in Maya society, serving as advisors to rulers and keepers of sacred knowledge. The earliest inscriptions were simple: dates, names, and basic statements about royal activities. But as the writing system matured, scribes began creating texts of extraordinary complexity and beauty. They recorded myths, histories, prophecies, and poetry with equal skill. The Maya understood that writing was itself a form of magic. Words carved in stone could speak across centuries. Names inscribed on monuments could grant a form of immortality. The very act of creating written records was a way of participating in the divine power of creation that the gods had used to speak the world into existence. Religious beliefs permeated every aspect of Maya life. The gods were not distant figures, but active participants in daily affairs. Itzamna, the creator deity, was imagined as a wise old man who had taught humans the arts of writing and calendar making. His name appears in royal inscriptions as the ultimate source of kingly authority. Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, represented the union of earth and sky. This god could take many forms: a great bird soaring through the heavens, a serpent slithering across the ground, or a magnificent hybrid creature that embodied both aspects. Temples were designed to honor Kukulkan with architectural effects that brought the deity to life through light and shadow. The maize god was perhaps the most beloved deity, for corn was the substance from which humans had been created. This young, handsome god died and was reborn with each planting season, his resurrection ensuring that the crops would grow and the people would have food. Royal portraits often showed kings dressed as the maize god, emphasizing their role in ensuring agricultural abundance. Chak, the rain god, appeared in many forms throughout Maya art. Sometimes he was shown as a single, powerful deity wielding lightning bolts. Other times, he was depicted as 4 different gods, one for each cardinal direction, working together to bring rain to thirsty crops. During droughts, special ceremonies honored Chak and pleaded for his life-giving waters. The underworld was ruled by numerous death gods with names like God A and God El in scholarly literature, though their ancient Maya names are often lost to us. These were not evil beings, but necessary parts of the cosmic order. Death fed life, just as fallen leaves nourished new growth. The underworld was where souls journeyed to be transformed and reborn. Maya kings claimed direct descent from these gods, or at least special relationships with particular deities. Royal bloodlines were traced back to mythological events described in creation stories. Coronation ceremonies often reenacted divine myths, with the new king playing the role of a god taking power for the first time. The calendar system reflected this divine view of time. Every day was sacred to particular gods and had its own spiritual character. Some days were fortunate for warfare, others for planting crops, still others for conducting ceremonies or making important political decisions. Priests consulted elaborate charts to determine the most auspicious timing for any significant activity. Shamanic traditions remained strong even as royal priesthoods became more elaborate. Village healers continued to practice divination, herbal medicine, and soul retrieval ceremonies that connected them directly with spirit helpers. These folk practitioners often served as intermediaries between common people and the more formal religious hierarchy centered in the cities. The Maya cosmos was structured like a great tree. The trunk represented the world where humans lived, with its roots extending deep into the underworld and its branches reaching up through multiple levels of heaven. This world tree was often depicted in art as a cecropia or cotton tree, both species sacred to the Maya. At the center of many Maya cities stood representations of this cosmic tree. Sometimes it was an actual living tree planted in the main plaza. Other times it was a tall stone stele, carved with the image of a ruler transformed into the world tree. These monuments served as access points connecting the three realms of existence. Bloodletting ceremonies took place at these sacred centers, often during important calendar dates or celestial events. The blood offered by rulers and nobles was believed to feed the world tree and keep it strong. In return, the tree provided stability and abundance for the entire community. The vision serpent was a crucial element in these rituals. When bloodied bark paper was burned, the smoke was said to take the form of a great serpent that served as a conduit between worlds. Ancestors and gods could manifest through this serpentine portal, appearing to give advice or blessings to the living. Women played important roles in these religious practices. Queens often performed bloodletting ceremonies alongside their husbands. Some women served as priestesses or oracles. Lady Six Sky and other female rulers demonstrated that divine authority was not limited to men, though women's religious roles were often expressed differently than men's. The ball game was itself a form of religious ceremony. The rubber ball represented the sun moving across the sky. The court symbolized the cosmic arena where forces of light and darkness battled for supremacy. Players reenacted the mythical games played by the hero twins against the lords of death. Some ball games ended with the sacrifice of players, though scholars debate whether winners or losers were chosen for this honor. Being sacrificed in the sacred ball court was considered a glorious fate, ensuring immediate transformation into a divine being. The blood spilled on the court nourished the earth and maintained cosmic balance. Human sacrifice, while practiced by the Maya, was not as common or central to their religion as popular culture sometimes suggests. Most offerings consisted of food, flowers, incense, and precious objects. When human sacrifice did occur, it was usually associated with major dedications, royal funerals, or times of extreme crisis when the gods needed extraordinary nourishment. Captives taken in warfare were sometimes sacrificed, but they might also be ransomed, adopted into the captor's family, or put to work on construction projects. The fate of prisoners depended on their rank, their usefulness, and the specific religious or political needs of their captors. The Maya developed an elaborate mythology around these practices. They told stories of gods who had sacrificed themselves to create the world, or to restart the sun's movement. Human sacrifice was seen as imitation of divine behavior, a way of participating in the creative forces that maintained the universe. Art from this period shows increasing sophistication in depicting religious themes. Temple facades were covered with enormous masks representing various gods. These were not flat decorations, but three-dimensional sculptures that seemed to come alive in the changing light of day. The skill required to create such works suggests specialized workshops of master craftsmen. Painted murals inside temples and palaces depicted mythological scenes with remarkable detail and artistic beauty. Colors remained vibrant for centuries, protected by the tropical climate they were originally designed to withstand. These paintings provide windows into Maya religious beliefs and practices that would otherwise be lost to time. The development of complex religious practices went hand in hand with political centralization. Kings who could successfully perform the ceremonies that kept the cosmos functioning were more likely to maintain power and loyalty. Religious authority became a crucial component of political legitimacy. As Maya cities grew larger and more complex, their religious practices became correspondingly elaborate. What had begun as simple village ceremonies evolved into spectacular pageants involving hundreds of participants. These events strengthened community bonds while demonstrating the power and divine approval of the ruling elite. The legacy of these early religious developments would shape Maya civilization for centuries to come. The gods worshipped in these formative years would continue to receive offerings throughout the classic period. The calendar systems developed by early priests would be refined but never abandoned. The writing system that emerged to record religious knowledge would eventually capture the full range of Maya thought and experience. Tikal's awakening. In the heart of the Tane rainforest, where howler monkeys announced the dawn and scarlet macaws flashed like living flames through the canopy, a city was stirring to greatness. Tikal began modestly, as most great things do, with families clearing small plots in the forest and building simple homes near reliable water sources. The location was perfect in ways that would only become apparent over time. Tikal sat on elevated ground that stayed dry during the rainy season. Seasonal swamps, called bahos, surrounded the core area and provided rich soil for agriculture when the waters receded. Natural springs and the ability to collect rainwater in reservoirs solved the challenge of dry season water supply. But geography alone does not create a great city. The early residents of Tikal possessed something equally important: vision. They could imagine structures larger than anything they had yet seen. They understood that small efforts, coordinated over long periods, could produce results that seemed impossible to any single generation. The first ceremonial structures at Tikal were built around 600 BCE, modest temples that established the sacred character of the site. Each subsequent generation added to these foundations, enlarging and beautifying the structures they inherited. Children grew up seeing the temples grow taller and more elaborate with each passing year. By 200 CE, Tikal was emerging as a major power in the Maya world. The city's rulers could command the labor needed for ambitious construction projects. They could organize trade expeditions that brought exotic goods from both coasts. They could field armies that projected Tikal's influence far beyond its immediate territory. The early kings of Tikal left their names carved in stone for us to discover centuries later. Yax Aab Suk founded the dynasty around 90 CE, establishing traditions that would guide his successors for over 800 years. His tomb, discovered deep beneath later construction, contained jade ornaments and ceramic vessels that proclaimed his divine status. Siaj Chan Kawil, it expanded Tikal's territory and influence during his reign in the early 300 CE. Under his leadership, the city's armies marched into distant regions, sometimes as conquerors, other times as allies supporting friendly rulers. These military campaigns brought back captives, tribute, and valuable intelligence about conditions throughout the Maya world. The wealth flowing into Tikal funded an explosion of artistic and architectural achievement. Sculptors created massive masks that transformed temple facades into portraits of gods and ancestors. These were not flat reliefs, but fully three-dimensional artworks that seemed to come alive as shadows shifted throughout the day. Temple 4, eventually the tallest structure at Tikal, began as a modest shrine but grew through successive renovations into a monument that rose nearly 200 feet above the forest floor. From its summit, priests could observe the movements of stars and planets with unprecedented clarity. The structure served simultaneously as observatory, temple, and symbol of royal power. The Great Plaza became the ceremonial heart of the city, a vast open space surrounded by pyramids and palaces. This was where the community gathered for important ceremonies, market days, and royal proclamations. The plaza was large enough to hold tens of thousands of people, suggesting that Tikal's influence extended far beyond its permanent population. Causeways connected different districts of the growing city, allowing rapid movement of people and goods between residential areas, ceremonial centers, and administrative buildings. These raised roads were engineering marvels, built to precise specifications that ensured proper drainage and structural stability. The residential areas of Tikal revealed the social complexity of the emerging city. Royal palaces occupied prime locations near the ceremonial center, surrounded by elaborate courtyards and decorated with carved stone facades. Noble families lived in substantial stone houses that proclaimed their status while remaining appropriately modest compared to royal residences. Craftspeople clustered in specialized neighborhoods where they could share resources and techniques. Obsidian workers lived near convenient sources of raw material. Potters located their workshops where good clay was available and waste products could be easily disposed of. These concentrations of skilled workers contributed to rapid innovations in technology and artistic style. Common people built their homes throughout the city and in surrounding agricultural areas. Their houses were smaller and simpler than elite residences, but were comfortable and well suited to the tropical climate. Extended families often lived in compounds of several connected buildings surrounding shared courtyards. The agricultural system that supported Tikal was sophisticated and productive. Farmers cultivated raised fields in the seasonal swamps, creating a network of canals that provided both drainage and irrigation. Terrace slopes maximized arable land in hilly areas. Forest gardens integrated useful trees with annual crops in sustainable polycultures. Trade was crucial to Tikal's prosperity. The city's merchants traveled along established routes that connected the Maya highlands with the Caribbean coast. They brought back obsidian for tools, jade for jewelry, cacao for sacred drinks, and countless other goods that enhanced the quality of life for Tikal's residents. The wealth generated by trade funded not only construction projects, but also the development of knowledge and arts. Tikal's scribes were among the most skilled in the Maya world, creating inscriptions that recorded historical events with unprecedented detail and accuracy. Their work provides modern scholars with invaluable insights into Maya political history. Astronomers at Tikal made observations that refined Maya understanding of celestial cycles. They calculated the length of the solar year, tracked the movements of Venus and other planets, and predicted eclipses with remarkable accuracy. This knowledge was essential for timing agricultural activities and religious ceremonies. The city's artists developed distinctive styles that influenced Maya art throughout the region. Tikal sculptors were particularly skilled at creating portraits that captured individual personalities while maintaining the formal dignity required for royal monuments. Their techniques spread to other cities through trade contacts and political alliances. Religious practices at Tikal reflected the city's growing importance and sophistication. Royal bloodletting ceremonies became increasingly elaborate, involving complex costumes, specialized implements, and carefully choreographed rituals. These events strengthened the bond between rulers and gods while demonstrating royal devotion to cosmic responsibilities. The emergence of Tikal as a major power was not without challenges. The city had to compete with other rising centers for control of trade routes and tribute-paying territories. Diplomatic marriages, military alliances, and occasional warfare all played roles in establishing Tikal's position in the complex political landscape of the classic Maya world. By 400 CE, Tikal was clearly one of the greatest cities in Mesoamerica. Its population may have reached 100,000 people at its peak. Its influence extended across hundreds of miles. Its monuments proclaimed the power and divine authority of its rulers to anyone who approached the city. But Tikal's greatness was built on foundations that extended far beyond military might or economic wealth. The city had become a center of learning where knowledge was preserved, refined, and transmitted to future generations. Its schools trained scribes and priests who carried Maya wisdom to other communities throughout the region. The artists and craftspeople of Tikal created works of beauty that continue to inspire admiration today. Their techniques and styles influenced Maya art for centuries. Their innovations in architecture, sculpture, and painting established standards of excellence that other cities sought to emulate. Most importantly, Tikal had demonstrated that Maya civilization could support truly urban societies without losing touch with the natural world that sustained them. The city remained integrated into the forest ecosystem, taking only what it needed and giving back through careful stewardship of the land. The awakening of Tikal was more than the rise of a single city. It represented the full flowering of Maya civilization, the moment when all the innovations of previous centuries came together to create something unprecedented in the Americas. The stage was now set for the greatest achievements in Maya history: Snake Kings and the birth of Calakmul. Deep in the Campeche jungle, where cecropia trees tower above a carpet of fallen leaves, another power was stirring. While Tikal grew mighty in the Nojpeten, a different kind of dynasty was taking shape among the wetlands and forests of the Mirador-Calakmul basin. These were the Snake Kings, rulers who would challenge Tikal's dominance and reshape the Maya world. The symbol of the snake, or Khan in ancient Maya, became the emblem of this ambitious dynasty. Not just any serpent, but the cosmic snake that represented lightning, water, and the life force that flowed through all creation. The choice of this symbol was both political statement and religious declaration. These kings claimed power over the very forces that sustained the universe. The dynasty's origins lay far to the east in a city called Xibanche. Here, in the rolling hills of what is now Quintana Roo, the early Snake Kings built their first monuments and established the traditions that would guide their descendants. Xibanche was strategically located to control trade routes connecting the Maya highlands with Caribbean coastal ports. The rulers of Xibanche were ambitious from the beginning. They commissioned elaborate palaces and temples that proclaimed their importance to anyone who visited their domain. Their sculptors created masterworks of Maya art, particularly a series of captive sculptures that demonstrated the dynasty's military prowess and divine approval. Around 500 CE, momentous changes began reshaping the political landscape of the Maya world. The Snake Kings made a decision that would alter the course of history. They relocated their capital from Xiban to a site deeper in the jungle, a place the Maya called Oxtetun, but which we know today as Calakmul. The move to Calakmul was a masterstroke of strategic thinking. The new location sat at the heart of one of the richest agricultural regions in the Maya world. The seasonal swamps, or bajos, that surrounded the city provided fertile soil and abundant wildlife. Natural wells called cenotes ensured reliable water supplies even during the driest years. But Calakmul's greatest advantage was its position relative to other Maya centers. The city sat almost exactly halfway between the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea. Trade routes from every direction converged on Calakmul, making it a natural hub for commerce and communication throughout the Maya world. The early kings of Calakmul wasted no time in establishing their new capital as a worthy rival to Tikal. They commissioned massive construction projects that transformed the jungle site into a magnificent urban center. The Great Pyramid of Calakmul eventually rose over 180 feet above the forest floor, challenging Tikal's monuments in both size and grandeur. Structure 2, the city's most impressive temple, was built according to astronomical principles that demonstrated the dynasty's sophisticated knowledge of celestial cycles. The building's orientation and proportions reflected Maya understanding of the connections between earthly architecture and cosmic order. Ceremonies performed at its summit were timed to coincide with significant astronomical events. The Snake Kings understood that military might alone could not sustain their ambitions. They needed to win the loyalty of other Maya rulers through a combination of diplomacy, marriage alliances, and demonstrations of supernatural authority. Their inscriptions emphasize their roles as protectors of cosmic order and guarantors of agricultural abundance. Yuknum Chin Us, one of the early great kings of Calakmul, expanded the dynasty's influence through a carefully planned campaign of alliance building. He arranged marriages between members of his family and the ruling houses of distant cities. These diplomatic unions created a network of loyalty that extended Calakmul's reach far beyond its immediate territory. The wealth flowing into Calakmul from tribute and trade funded an explosion of artistic achievement. The city's sculptors developed a distinctive style that emphasized dynamic movement and emotional expression. Their works showed gods and rulers in active poses that seemed to capture moments of divine intervention in human affairs. Calakmul's painters created some of the most beautiful murals in the Maya world. The recently discovered paintings in Structure 1 reveal scenes of courtly life rendered with skill and attention to detail that brings the ancient world to life. Musicians, dancers, scribes, and nobles move through painted palaces as if frozen in time at the height of a grand celebration. The city's ceramicists developed new techniques that produced pottery of exceptional beauty and technical excellence. Calakmul became famous throughout the Maya world for its painted vessels, which were traded as luxury goods and buried with elite individuals as far away as Guatemala and Honduras. Royal burials at Calakmul revealed the incredible wealth and sophistication of the Snake Kings. Tombs contained thousands of jade ornaments, obsidian blades with handles of carved bone, ceramic vessels painted with mythological scenes, and textiles that have long since decayed but left impressions of their intricate patterns. The dynasty's power was not built solely on wealth and artistic achievement. The Snake Kings were formidable military leaders who could field large armies and conduct complex campaigns across vast distances. Their warriors used advanced tactics and sophisticated logistics to project Calakmul's power throughout the Maya world. Intelligence networks allowed Calakmul's rulers to stay informed about political developments in distant regions. They knew when rival dynasties were weakened by succession disputes or natural disasters. They understood which cities might be persuaded to switch allegiances through the right combination of threats and incentives. The Snake Kings also proved themselves masters of psychological warfare. They commissioned monuments that proclaimed their victories and divine approval in terms designed to intimidate potential enemies. These inscriptions were placed where foreign diplomats and traders would see them, spreading Calakmul's reputation far beyond its borders. Religious authority was crucial to the dynasty's legitimacy. The Snake Kings claimed special relationships with powerful deities, particularly those associated with warfare, rain, and royal authority. Their ceremonies were designed to demonstrate their ability to maintain cosmic balance and ensure the continued prosperity of their subjects. The calendar round and long count systems reached new levels of sophistication under Calakmul's patronage. The city's astronomer-priests made observations and calculations that refined Maya understanding of planetary cycles and eclipse patterns. This knowledge was essential for timing military campaigns and political initiatives. By 600 CE, Calakmul had emerged as Tikal's primary rival for supremacy in the Maya world. The two great cities represented different approaches to power and governance. Tikal emphasized continuity and tradition, while Calakmul promoted innovation and expansion. Both models attracted supporters and imitators throughout the region. The stage was now set for one of the greatest rivalries in ancient American history. For the next 2 centuries, these two superpowers would compete for dominance through warfare, diplomacy, and cultural achievement. Their struggle would reshape the political map of the Maya world and drive innovations in art, architecture, and statecraft. The Snake Kings had successfully established themselves as legitimate claimants to hegemony over the Maya world. Their new capital at Calakmul was both a monument to their achievements and a fortress from which they could launch the campaigns that would challenge Tikal's ancient supremacy. The birth of Calakmul as a major power marked a turning point in Maya civilization. No longer would any single city dominate the region unchallenged. The age of great rivalries had begun, and with it would come both the highest achievements and the eventual decline of classic Maya civilization. War in the sky, Tikal versus Calakmul, begins, high above the jungle canopy where eagles ride thermal currents and scan the green world below. The greatest rivalry in Maya history was taking shape. Two mighty cities, separated by just 100 miles of dense forest, were preparing for a conflict that would consume generations and reshape the political landscape of Mesoamerica. Tikal and Calakmul were more than cities. They were the centers of vast networks of alliance and loyalty that extended across hundreds of miles. When these two powers clashed, the reverberations were felt from the mountains of Guatemala to the coastal plains of Campeche. Every Maya ruler had to choose sides in a conflict that would define the age. The rivalry began not with armies clashing in the jungle, but with subtle diplomatic maneuvers and carefully calculated insults. Ambassadors arrived at royal courts bearing gifts that carried hidden meanings. Marriage proposals were made and rejected in ways that sent clear political messages. Trade routes were quietly redirected to favor one alliance over another. Siaj Kak, a mysterious figure who arrived at Tikal in 378 CE, may have brought with him military innovations from distant Teotihuacan. This great city in central Mexico was developing new approaches to warfare and political organization. The knowledge he carried helped Tikal modernize its military and strengthen its position against emerging rivals. The influence of Teotihuacan on Maya warfare was profound but subtle. New weapons appeared in Maya armories: atlatls that could hurl spears with deadly force, obsidian-bladed clubs that could shatter bone, and protective armor made from quilted cotton soaked in brine. These innovations gave early advantages to the cities that adopted them first. Jasa Chankawil ruled Tikal during the early phase of the Great Rivalry. His inscriptions reveal a king obsessed with maintaining his city's preeminence against growing challenges. He commissioned new monuments that proclaimed Tikal's ancient legitimacy and divine approval. He organized elaborate ceremonies designed to intimidate visiting diplomats and potential enemies. Meanwhile, at Calakmul, Yuknum Chin II was building the coalition that would challenge Tikal's dominance. Known to scholars as the Great Sun Lord, this king understood that defeating Tikal would require more than military might. He needed to isolate his enemy politically while building overwhelming numerical superiority. The Snake King's strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Rather than attacking Tikal directly, he would surround it with hostile allies. City after city was brought into Calakmul's orbit through a combination of diplomacy, intimidation, and strategic marriage alliances. Tikal's traditional supporters were systematically turned against their former patron. Karakol was the first major prize in this diplomatic campaign. This important city in modern Belize had long been aligned with Tikal, but Calakmul's ambassadors arrived with offers too attractive to refuse. Marriage alliances linked the ruling houses. Trade agreements promised increased prosperity. Military guarantees ensured protection against Tikal's inevitable retaliation. The loss of Karakol was a severe blow to Tikal's prestige and strategic position. Important trade routes now fell under Calakmul's influence. A potential forward base for operations against the Snake Kings was transformed into a staging area for attacks on Tikal itself. The balance of power in the Maya world was shifting. Dos Pilas represented an even more serious challenge to Tikal's position. This city was founded by a member of Tikal's own royal family, but political circumstances forced its ruler to seek Calakmul's protection. The defection of a blood relative was both a practical loss and a symbolic humiliation that weakened Tikal's claims to legitimate authority. Military technology was evolving rapidly as the rivalry intensified. Siege warfare techniques appeared for the first time in Maya history. Cities began building more sophisticated defensive works. New tactics emphasized mobility and surprise rather than the formal battles that had characterized earlier conflicts. The first major battle between the two superpowers took place in 562 CE, when Calakmul's allies achieved a stunning victory over Tikal's forces. The defeat was so complete that Tikal's monuments fell silent for over a century, suggesting that the city lost its independence and became a vassal of the Snake Kings. This victory marked the high point of Calakmul's power. The Snake Kings now commanded a network of allied cities that stretched from the Caribbean coast to the mountains of Guatemala. Their influence was felt in political decisions made hundreds of miles from their jungle capital. They had achieved what no Maya dynasty had accomplished before: true hegemony over the Maya world. But the triumph also contained the seeds of future problems. Managing such a vast alliance required constant attention and resources. Distant allies needed regular demonstrations of Calakmul's power and commitment. The costs of maintaining hegemony began to strain even the Snake King's impressive resources. Tikal's defeat was devastating, but not permanent. The city's core territory remained intact, and its population continued to grow. Elite families preserved their wealth and social position while waiting for opportunities to restore their city's independence. The institutional knowledge that had made Tikal great was carefully maintained through the dark years. The period of Calakmul's dominance saw significant changes in Maya warfare and politics. Military campaigns became larger and more complex, involving multiple allied cities coordinating their efforts across vast distances. Political relationships became more fluid, with cities switching sides based on changing calculations of advantage and survival. Art and architecture reflected the new political realities. Victory monuments became more common and more elaborate, celebrating military achievements with unprecedented detail. Palace complexes grew larger to accommodate the expanded diplomatic activities required by the new international system. Trade patterns shifted to reflect political alignments. Cities allied with Calakmul gained preferential access to certain goods and trade routes. Those that remained loyal to Tikal found themselves increasingly isolated from important commercial networks. Economic pressure became another weapon in the arsenal of political competition. Religious practices also evolved in response to the changing political landscape. Warfare deities received increased attention and more elaborate ceremonies. Royal bloodletting rituals were designed to ensure divine support for military campaigns. The calendar systems were consulted more frequently to determine auspicious dates for battles and diplomatic initiatives. The rivalry between Tikal and Calakmul was transforming Maya civilization in fundamental ways. The age of small, independent city-states was ending. In its place was emerging a system of large alliances dominated by superpowers capable of projecting force across vast distances. This transformation brought both benefits and costs. The larger political units could organize more ambitious construction projects and support more specialized craftspeople and scholars. But they also required more resources for military activities and created new forms of political instability. The war in the sky was far from over. Tikal's defeat in 562 CE was not the end of the story, but merely the conclusion of the first phase. The forces that had made Tikal great were still present, waiting for the right moment to reassert themselves. The greatest battles of this epic rivalry were yet to come. Maya civilization was entering its most dynamic and dangerous period. The innovations in warfare, diplomacy, and political organization developed during this rivalry would shape the Maya world for centuries to come. The conflict between Tikal and Calakmul had become the driving force behind Maya historical development. The sky above the jungle would witness many more battles before this rivalry reached its conclusion. Each victory and defeat would reshape the political map of Mesoamerica. The stakes could not be higher. Nothing less than the future of Maya civilization hung in the balance. The ballgame isn't just a game. In the pre-dawn darkness, as mist rises from the jungle floor like the breath of sleeping gods, two teams of players prepare for a contest that is far more than sport. They paint their bodies with sacred symbols. They don jade ornaments that have been blessed by priests. They speak prayers to ancestors who watch from the realm of stars. The ball court stretches before them like a stone valley, its sloped walls rising toward the sky. At each end stands a ring carved with serpent heads. They have their mouths open to receive the sacred rubber ball. This is not merely an arena, but a replica of the cosmic stage where gods and heroes battle for the survival of the world. The rubber ball itself is alive with meaning. Made from the sap of trees that grow in the heart of the forest, it represents the sun on its daily journey across the heavens. Its bounce mirrors the resilience of life itself, the way hope springs back even after the darkest defeats. To strike the ball is to participate in the fundamental forces that keep the universe in motion. The game begins with the thunder of the ball against stone walls. Players cannot use their hands or feet, but must strike the ball with hips, shoulders, and forearms. The skill required is extraordinary. Years of training are needed to master the techniques that allow players to control the heavy rubber sphere with precision and grace. Spectators fill the platforms above the court, but they are not merely watching entertainment. They are witnessing a sacred drama that reenacts the cosmic struggles described in Maya mythology. Every successful play echoes the victories of the hero twins over the lords of death. Every missed shot reminds viewers of the constant threat of chaos and destruction. The court itself is designed according to precise mathematical and astronomical principles. Its proportions reflect Maya understanding of cosmic harmony. The angle of the walls is calculated to produce specific acoustic effects. A whisper at one end can be heard clearly at the other, while normal conversation is lost in the stone chambers that flank the playing field. Sound was crucial to the spiritual power of the game. The rhythmic bouncing of the ball created percussion that summoned the gods and announced important moments to the spirit world. Players wore bells and rattles that added musical accompaniment to their athletic performance. Drums and flutes played from the sidelines, their melodies weaving together sport and ceremony. The rules varied from city to city and changed over time, but certain elements remained constant. Teams usually consisted of 2 to 4 players. The objective was to keep the ball in play while trying to score points by getting it through the stone rings or hitting specific targets on the court walls. Some games ended when one team successfully passed the ball through a ring, a feat so difficult that it occurred rarely. But scoring was not always the primary purpose. Some games were played for predetermined lengths of time, with victory going to the team that demonstrated superior skill and endurance. Others were ritual performances, where the quality of play mattered more than the final score. The gods were more interested in effort and devotion than in simple victory or defeat. Players came from all levels of Maya society. Common people played informal versions of the game in small courts attached to residential areas. These casual matches served as training grounds for young athletes and as community entertainment during festivals and market days. The ball game was one of the few activities that could bring together people of different social classes. Elite players received intensive training from childhood. They were taught not only athletic skills, but also the mythological and astronomical knowledge needed to understand the deeper meanings of their performance. These athletes often came from noble families or were sponsored by wealthy patrons who saw excellence in the ball game as a path to social advancement. The most skilled players could achieve fame and fortune that extended far beyond their home cities. Champions were invited to compete in distant courts, spreading their reputations across the Maya world. Some became advisors to kings or married into royal families. The ball game provided one of the few opportunities for individuals to transcend the social circumstances of their birth. Equipment was carefully crafted and ritually prepared. The balls themselves were made by specialists who knew the secret techniques for processing rubber tree sap. The process involved mixing the latex with juice from morning glory vines, creating a material that was both durable and bouncy. Each ball was unique, with slight variations in size and weight that affected its behavior. Players wore protective gear made from leather and quilted cotton. Hip yokes, called yugitos, protected the body parts most commonly used to strike the ball. These were often decorated with carved scenes from Maya mythology, transforming functional equipment into works of art that proclaimed the wearer's status and spiritual preparation. The most elaborate ball games were associated with important political and religious events. Royal coronations, victory celebrations, and major religious festivals often featured ceremonial matches played by the finest athletes available. These games drew spectators from distant cities and served as opportunities for diplomatic contact between different Maya kingdoms. Gambling was common during ball games, with spectators wagering valuable goods on the outcomes. Jade ornaments, cacao beans, colorful feathers, and even slaves changed hands based on the results of particularly important matches. These bets added excitement to the games while redistributing wealth throughout the community. The connection between the ball game and human sacrifice has been exaggerated in popular culture, but ritual killing did occur in certain contexts. Archaeological evidence suggests that sacrifice was most common during games associated with major dedications or times of crisis, when the gods required extraordinary offerings. The identity of sacrifice victims, whether winners, losers, or specially chosen individuals, varied according to local traditions and specific circumstances. When sacrifice did occur, it was considered a great honor rather than a punishment. The victims were transformed into divine messengers who could carry prayers directly to the gods. Their blood nourished the earth and ensured the continued fertility of crops and the regularity of rainfall. The mythology surrounding the ball game was complex and varied. The hero twins' victory over the lords of Xibalba was the most important story, but many other myths involve divine or heroic figures playing cosmic versions of the game. These stories were painted on court walls and recited during ceremonial matches, connecting each game to the larger narrative of cosmic struggle and renewal. Different cities developed their own variations of ball game mythology. Local heroes were incorporated into the stories, and regional deities received special attention during ceremonial matches. These adaptations allowed each community to claim its own special relationship with the cosmic forces represented by the game. The ball courts themselves were often built over earlier structures or incorporated into larger ceremonial complexes. Many served multiple functions, hosting not only games but also religious ceremonies, public meetings, and royal audiences. The courts were sacred spaces that belonged to the entire community, regardless of social class or political affiliation. Trade in ball game equipment connected distant Maya communities and spread innovations in technology and technique. Rubber from specific regions was prized for its quality. Skilled craftspeople who made protective gear developed reputations that extended beyond their home cities. The ball game became a unifying cultural force that transcended political boundaries. The game also served important educational functions. Young people learned about Maya history and mythology through the stories associated with different courts and competitions. They developed physical skills and competitive spirit while absorbing lessons about cooperation, fair play, and respect for opponents. As Maya civilization evolved, so did the ball game. New court designs reflected changing architectural styles. Rule variations responded to social and religious developments. The game remained a constant thread connecting all periods of Maya history, from the earliest settlements to the Spanish conquest and beyond. The sound of the rubber ball striking stone walls echoed through Maya cities for over 2,000 years. Each bounce carried forward ancient traditions while adapting to new circumstances. The game that began as a simple recreation became a sophisticated ritual that encoded the deepest beliefs of one of the world's great civilizations. In the growing light of dawn, as the mist lifts from the ball court and reveals the carved serpent rings waiting for the sacred sphere, we can almost hear the voices of ancient players calling to their gods. The game continues, not in the old courts, but in the hearts and memories of their descendants. The ball still bounces. The cosmos still turns. The eternal contest between light and darkness plays on. Maya kings understood that the ball game was never just a game. It was life itself, with all its struggles and triumphs, defeats and resurrections. In learning to play with skill and honor, the Maya learned to live with courage and wisdom. The court was their school. The ball was their teacher. The game was their prayer. Rest now in the knowledge that some traditions transcend time itself. The rubber ball may no longer bounce in the ancient courts, but the spirit of the game lives on wherever people gather to test themselves against worthy opponents, to celebrate skill and determination, to remember that in the end, how we play matters more than whether we win or lose. The science of time. Deep in the jungle night, Maya priests climbed stone steps toward heaven. They carried obsidian blades and bark paper books. Above them, stars wheeled in patterns older than memory. These men weren't just watching the sky. They were reading it like scripture. The Maya saw time differently than we do. We think of time as a river flowing forward. They saw it as wheels within wheels spinning forever. 3 calendars turned together in perfect harmony. The sacred count of 260 days, the solar year of 365 days, and the long count measuring epochs from the very birth of the world. Picture a great cosmic clock made of jade and starlight, every gear connected to every other gear. When the wheels aligned in special ways, gods walked the earth. Kings scheduled wars for lucky days. Farmers planted corn when Venus rose. Children received names blessed by sacred numbers. The Tzolk'in calendar held 260 days. 20-day signs combined with 13 numbers. Each day carried its own spirit, its own flavor of divine power. Birth on the day, one flower meant a life of beauty. Birth on 7 death promised shamanic gifts. Parents waited for good days to name their babies. Warriors attacked when the calendar promised victory. The Hab tracked the seasons through 365 days, 18 months of 20 days each, plus 5 unlucky days at year's end. During those final 5 days, called Wayeb, the world grew thin. Demons crept through cracks in reality. People stayed home, spoke softly, avoided sharp objects. Then the new year dawned, and safety returned. But the long count measured something grander. It tracked the current age of the world from its moment of creation. The Maya believed this world began on a day we call August 11th, 3114 BCE. On that morning, the gods set 3 stones in the darkness of space. These became the hearth of creation, what we know as the constellation Orion. Every Maya date combined all 3 systems. A scribe might write, on the day 9, Akbal 1 Kankin, in the year 9, 15, 3, 4, 1. This told you the sacred day, the solar position, and exactly how many days had passed since creation began. No other culture on Earth developed such precision. Maya astronomers tracked Venus with accuracy that rivals modern computers. They knew her cycle lasted 584 days. They watched her disappear behind the sun for 8 days, then emerge as the morning star. When Venus rose, it was time for war. The brightest planet became the patron of kings and battles. They charted eclipses centuries in advance. Solar eclipses meant the sun was being devoured by celestial jaguars. Lunar eclipses showed the moon goddess bleeding from divine wounds. These weren't random disasters. They were scheduled appointments with cosmic drama predicted and prepared for by priest astronomers. The calendar wasn't just practical. It was sacred mathematics made visible. Numbers had souls. 0 wasn't empty space, but the shell of becoming, pregnant with infinite possibility. The number 13 touched the divine realm. 20 matched the count of human fingers and toes, making it perfect for earthly calculations. Maya creation stories told of previous worlds destroyed when their time expired. The first people were made of mud but dissolved in rain. The second were carved from wood but had no souls and were destroyed by flood. The third were too proud and were turned into monkeys. We are the 4th attempt, made from corn and destined to serve the gods. This current world would end too, when its great cycle completed. Some Maya texts speak of the year 2012 CE as a moment of cosmic renewal, not destruction, but transformation. The end of one age, the beginning of another. Time as a spiral staircase, always climbing toward new possibilities. In temple schools, young nobles learned to calculate dates thousands of years into the future and past. They memorized tables of Venus cycles, eclipse warnings, and ritual schedules. Mathematics became a form of prayer. Astronomy became a conversation with gods. The calendar connected every aspect of Maya life. Markets opened on favorable days. Festivals honored specific moments when divine energy peaked. Even the dead were buried according to cosmic timing, ensuring their souls would find the proper path through the underworld. Common people might not understand the complex calculations, but they lived by the rhythm of sacred time. They planted beans when the Pleiades rose. They wove cloth during certain lunar phases. They told their children stories that began in the days when time was young. This wasn't superstition. It was a sophisticated system for organizing reality. The Maya calendar integrated mythology, astronomy, agriculture, politics, and daily life into one grand design. It reminded everyone that humans weren't separate from the cosmos. We were part of its great dance, keeping time with the heartbeat of creation itself. The engineer kings of Palenke water flows down from green mountains, carving channels through limestone bedrock. Here, where streams meet jungle, Maya builders created something miraculous. Palenke rose like a dream made of stone. Its towers reflected in clear pools and rushing cascades. This wasn't just another Maya city. Palenke was an experiment in harmonizing architecture with nature. Its builders diverted rivers to flow beneath palace floors. They carved channels that sang with flowing water day and night. Every courtyard had fountains. Every plaza echoed with the music of cascades. The jungle here grows differently than in the flat lowlands of Tikal or Calakmul. Hills roll like sleeping giants beneath the canopy. Springs bubble up from hidden caves. Mist rises at dawn, wrapping temples in veils of silver cloud. The Maya who settled here found paradise and decided to improve it. They called their city La Cama, Big Water. Visitors today know it as Palenque, a Spanish word meaning palisade. But the ancient name captures something essential. This was always a city defined by the marriage of stone and stream, engineering, and ecology. The first builders arrived around 100 CE, but Palenque remained small for centuries. Then came a dynasty that changed everything. Kinich Janab Pakal ascended the throne in 615 CE. He was 12 years old. His mother, Lady Sak Kuk, served as regent until he came of age. By the time Pakal died in 683, he had ruled for 68 years and transformed his city into a wonder of the world. Pakal understood something profound about power. Military might could conquer territory, but architectural beauty conquered hearts. He poured Palenque's wealth into buildings that would inspire awe for millennia. Every structure balanced practical function with artistic grace. Every room was positioned to catch morning light or evening breezes. The Temple of Inscriptions became Pakal's masterwork and his tomb. 9 levels of stone steps climbed toward heaven, each level representing a layer of the underworld. Inside, hieroglyphic texts cover the walls like prayers written in stone. These inscriptions tell the story of Pakal's reign and his divine right to rule. They're among the longest Maya texts ever discovered. Deep within the temple, Pakal's sarcophagus rests in a chamber hidden for centuries. The lid shows the king at the moment of death falling into the maw of the underworld while simultaneously being reborn as the maize god. Jade masks and precious ornaments surrounded his body. Even in death, he remained clothed in divine authority. The palace complex sprawls across 13 acres of terraced hillside. 4-story towers rise above courtyards decorated with stucco sculptures. Prisoners of war captured in battles against rival cities appear in stone reliefs as humbled figures kneeling before Palenque's rulers. But these aren't crude propaganda pieces. They're sophisticated artworks showing defeated enemies with dignity and individual personality. Pakal's engineers solved problems that challenged Maya builders everywhere. How do you prevent massive stone structures from collapsing? Palenque's answer was the corbel arch with interior buttresses. How do you provide fresh water to thousands of residents? Build aqueducts that double as architectural features. How do you create beauty that lasts? Combine perfect proportions with materials that improve with age. The city's workshops produced art that influences sculptors today. Palenque's stucco work achieved a naturalism unknown elsewhere in the Maya world. Faces show individual character. Bodies move with lifelike grace. Even the gods appear as recognizable personalities rather than abstract symbols. Kinich Khan Balam, Pakal's son, continued his father's architectural vision. He built the Cross Group, 3 temples arranged around a plaza, each dedicated to a different aspect of Maya creation mythology. The Temple of the Cross celebrates the world tree that connects earth to sky. The Temple of the Foliated Cross honors the maize god who provides humanity's daily bread. The Temple of the Sun praises the jaguar lord of the underworld. These weren't just religious buildings. They were textbooks in stone teaching anyone who could read hieroglyphs about the nature of existence. Creation myths, astronomical observations, historical chronicles, and theological arguments, all carved into permanent form and arranged in architectural sequences that enhanced their meaning. Palenque's artists developed their own distinctive style. Elongated heads, delicate features, and elaborate headdresses became the city's signature. Nobles wore their hair in complex arrangements that required teams of servants to maintain. Jade ornaments dangled from every available surface. Even children appeared in official portraits wearing miniature versions of adult royal regalia. The city reached its peak during the 8th century, when a series of capable rulers maintained Pakal's vision while adapting to changing times. Trade networks brought exotic goods from across Mesoamerica, cacao from the Caribbean coast, obsidian from highland Guatemala, feathers from tropical birds that lived hundreds of miles away. But Palenque faced the same challenges that threatened every Maya center. Resources grew scarce as populations expanded. Climate patterns shifted, bringing unpredictable droughts and floods. Rival cities launched increasingly aggressive campaigns. The delicate balance between human ambition and environmental limits began to fracture. By 900 CE, the great construction projects had ended. The royal court abandoned the palace. Jungle vines began their patient work of reclaiming stone. But the engineering marvels of Palenque continued functioning. Water still flows through ancient channels, stone still holds back hillsides, the marriage of human skill and natural force endures, waiting quietly for new discoveries. Palenque versus Tonina, the jungle feud. In the mountains south of Palenque, another Maya city carved terraces into steep hillsides. Tonina built its temples on artificial cliffs that rose 300 feet above valley floors. This was a fortress disguised as a ceremonial center, home to warriors who made war into an art form. The two cities couldn't have been more different. Palenque celebrated water, harmony, and intellectual achievement. Tonina worshipped conflict, domination, and the beauty of controlled violence. Where Palenque's sculptures showed gods and kings in peaceful contemplation, Tonina's depicted bound captives awaiting sacrifice. The rivalry began in personal insult and escalated into generational warfare. Sometime around 688 CE, Tonina's ruler Kinich Baknal Chak captured and sacrificed a member of Palenque's royal family. The victim might have been Kinich Kan Joy Chitam, brother of the great king Tikal. This wasn't just military victory, it was cosmic humiliation. Maya warfare followed strict rules. Battles were scheduled for astronomically favorable days. Warriors wore elaborate costumes that identified their rank and city. The goal wasn't extermination, but capture. Living prisoners were more valuable than corpses because they could be sacrificed in public ceremonies that fed the gods and demonstrated divine favor. Tonina's warriors specialized in ambush tactics suited to their mountainous homeland. They built hidden forts at strategic passes. They struck quickly, then melted back into forests that concealed 1,000 escape routes. Their captains learned to read terrain like priests read star charts, finding advantage in every ridge and ravine. The mountain cities' monuments celebrate these victories with disturbing artistry. Stone panels show naked prisoners with ropes around their necks, their nobility stripped away along with their clothing. Some scenes depict the moment of capture, when proud kings realize their divine protection has failed them. Others show the aftermath, when defeated rulers become props in their captors' rituals. Kinich Baknal Chak ruled Tonina for over 60 years, longer than most Maya dynasties lasted. He transformed a minor highland center into a power that challenged the greatest cities of the age. His architects carved ball courts directly into living rock. His sculptors created monuments that combined religious symbolism with military propaganda. The ball game at Tonina took on special meaning. This wasn't just sport, but cosmic drama. The rubber ball represented the sun journeying through the underworld. Players reenacted the struggles of mythic heroes against the lords of death. Sometimes prisoners were forced to play, knowing that loss meant sacrifice. Victory might bring freedom, but few captives possessed the skill to defeat their captors at their own game. Palenque tried to respond with its traditional methods. Diplomatic marriages were arranged with allied cities. Tribute was paid to more powerful neighbors. Scribes composed texts that emphasized Palenque's ancient legitimacy and divine connections. But Tonina cared little for such niceties. They preferred the language of captured kings and smoking temples. The warfare between these cities reflected broader changes in the Maya world. The old order, where competition remained mostly ceremonial, was breaking down. Resources grew scarce as populations expanded. Climate change brought unpredictable droughts and floods. Elite families competed more desperately for diminishing wealth and status. Tonina's success inspired imitators throughout the highlands. Other mountain cities adopted similar strategies, combining defensive architecture with aggressive raiding. The genteel diplomacy of the classic period gave way to something harsher and more urgent. Survival required strength, not just legitimacy. The mountain warriors developed new weapons and tactics. Obsidian-tipped spears could penetrate traditional cotton armor. Atlatl spear throwers increased range and accuracy. Warriors trained in formations that maximized the impact of their attacks while minimizing their own casualties. War became professional rather than ceremonial. Palenque's artists responded to these challenges by emphasizing their city's cultural superiority. They created works of unprecedented beauty and sophistication, as if artistic excellence could protect them from military defeat. Palace walls displayed captives from various conflicts, but these were shown with dignity, even sympathy. Palenque seemed to be arguing that true civilization lay in mercy rather than brutality. The struggle reached its climax in 711 CE when Tonina achieved its greatest victory. They captured Kinich Khan Joy Chitam VI, Palenque's reigning king, during a battle fought near the borders between their territories. The capture was timed to coincide with a significant astronomical event, ensuring maximum cosmic significance. Khan Joy Chitam had ruled Palenque for 36 years. He was the grandson of the great Pakal and heir to centuries of cultural achievement. His capture represented more than military defeat. It suggested that the gods themselves had abandoned Palenque's dynasty. Tonina's monuments show the captive king stripped of his royal regalia, bound with ropes, and awaiting sacrifice. But the mountain city's triumph proved temporary. Capturing Palenque's king required enormous military effort and diplomatic preparation. Tonina's armies had traveled far from their defensive positions, leaving their homeland vulnerable. Other enemies took advantage of this opportunity to strike at Tonina's own territory. The long conflict exhausted both cities. Palenque never fully recovered from the loss of its king. Royal construction projects ended. Trade networks collapsed. The great palace began its slow abandonment. Tonina remained powerful for another century, but the effort of maintaining military dominance strained their resources beyond recovery. By 900 CE, both cities were shadows of their former selves. The jungle began reclaiming their monuments. The rivalry that had driven decades of warfare ended not in decisive victory, but in mutual exhaustion. Future archaeologists would find their ruins within a day's walk of each other, silent testimony to the costs of perpetual conflict. The story of Palenque and Tonina illustrates a pattern repeated throughout the late classic Maya world. Military competition intensified as resources grew scarce. Defensive warfare gave way to aggressive expansion. Cultural achievements, no matter how magnificent, couldn't guarantee political survival. The age of warrior kings had begun, and it would ultimately consume the civilization that created it. Copan and the Dynasty of Smoke. Far to the southeast, where Maya territory meets the mountains of Honduras, a river valley opens like a green jewel. Here, surrounded by hills covered in pine and oak, Maya architects built a city unlike any other. Copan became the Athens of the Maya world, a place where art, science, and scholarship flourished under the protection of powerful kings. The river that gives the valley its name flows year-round, fed by springs that never fail. Rich soil deposits support agriculture that doesn't require the complex water management systems needed elsewhere. Nature provided the foundation for prosperity. Human ambition built everything else. Around 426 CE, a warrior named Kinich Yaxkuk Mo arrived in this valley with a small army and grand plans. Local legends claim he came from the west, possibly from Teotihuacan or its Maya allies. Archaeological evidence suggests he brought new ideas about kingship, warfare, and architectural design. Whether conqueror or invited ruler, he founded a dynasty that would endure for 4 centuries. Yaxkukmo means first Quetzalmacaw, a name that connects the earthly ruler to celestial powers. Quetzal birds were sacred to the Maya, their brilliant green feathers more valuable than jade. Macaws represented the sun in its daily journey across the sky. The new king claimed authority over both earth and heaven, a theme that would echo through generations of his descendants. The founder's tomb, discovered beneath Copan's Acropolis, reveals the man behind the legend. His bones show battle scars and evidence of a hard life. Chemical analysis of his teeth suggests he wasn't born in the Copan Valley, but came from the western lowlands. He was a foreigner who became the father of a local dynasty. Yaxkukmo's successors took the name Smoke in various forms. Smoke Imix, Smoke Jaguar, Smoke Monkey, Smoke Shell. Each ruler connected his identity to this sacred element that carries prayers to the gods. The dynasty became known as the House of Smoke, emphasizing their role as intermediaries between human and divine realms. Under these smoke kings, Copan developed into the most sophisticated intellectual center in the Maya world. The city's scribes invented new forms of hieroglyphic writing. Their artists perfected sculpture techniques that wouldn't be matched in Europe for another 1,000 years. Their astronomers calculated planetary motions with precision that rivals modern computers. The hieroglyphic stairway represents Copan's greatest achievement in stone. 63 steps climb the face of a pyramid, each step carved with texts that tell the history of the dynasty. More than 2,200 individual hieroglyphs create the longest Maya inscription ever discovered. Reading from bottom to top, the stairs narrate 4 centuries of royal achievements, from the arrival of Yaxcook Mo to the dedication of the monument itself. But the stairway is more than historical record. It's a theological argument carved in stone. The text demonstrates that Copan's rulers possessed legitimate authority derived from divine appointment. Every military victory, every architectural project, every ritual performance served to strengthen the cosmic order that placed these kings between earth and sky. The city's ball court became the most elaborate in the Maya world. 3 playing alleys allowed multiple games to occur simultaneously. Hieroglyphic texts line the walls, explaining the cosmic significance of the sport. Sculpted macaw heads mark the corners, connecting the games to solar mythology. The court wasn't just entertainment, but sacred theater, where human athletes reenacted the struggles of gods and heroes. Copan's artists developed a distinctive style that emphasized naturalistic portraiture. Rather than idealized royal faces, they carved individuals with recognizable features and personal character. Rulers appear as distinct personalities rather than interchangeable symbols of divine authority. This artistic revolution influenced sculpture throughout Mesoamerica. The most accomplished of the Smoke dynasty was Uaxtlajuan Uba Kawil, known to archaeologists as Ruler 13 or 18 Rabbit. His name means 18 images of Kawil, connecting him to the lightning god who legitimated Maya kingship. He ruled for 43 years, from 695 to 738 CE, presiding over Copan's golden age. 18 Rabbit commissioned most of the sculptural masterpieces that make Copan famous today. The stele portraits he ordered show Maya art at its peak, technically perfect, emotionally compelling, and rich with symbolic meaning. Each monument tells multiple stories simultaneously: historical events, mythological parallels, astronomical observations, and theological statements. The king surrounded himself with scholars and artists drawn from across the Maya world. His court became a magnet for intellectual achievement. Scribes developed new ways to write Maya languages. Mathematicians refined calendar calculations. Astronomers built observatories that predicted eclipses centuries in advance. Trade networks brought exotic materials to Copan's workshops: jade from the Motagua Valley, obsidian from highland Guatemala, marine shells from both Atlantic and Pacific coasts, cacao from tropical lowlands. The city's artisans transformed these raw materials into works of art that were traded throughout Mesoamerica. Under 18 Rabbit's patronage, Copan's population reached perhaps 25,000 people. The urban core featured palaces, temples, and administrative buildings constructed from local trachyte, volcanic stone that could be carved with fine detail. Residential areas spread across the valley floor and up surrounding hillsides, connected by stone causeways and market plazas. The dynasty's success created its own problems. Royal construction projects required enormous labor forces. Feeding the growing population strained agricultural resources. Maintaining trade networks demanded military strength and diplomatic skill. Elite families competed for access to royal patronage, creating internal tensions that weakened central authority. Archaeological evidence suggests that Copan's environment began showing stress during the 8th century. Deforestation reduced rainfall and increased erosion. Soil depletion forced farmers to work marginal lands. The river that had attracted the first settlers started carrying more silt, disrupting fish populations and water supplies. Political challenges accompanied environmental problems. Rival cities grew stronger as Copan's resources were stretched thin. The kingdom that had once dominated southeastern Maya territory found itself struggling to maintain control over its own valley. The stage was set for the dramatic events that would end the Smoke dynasty and transform Copan forever. Yet even as storm clouds gathered, the city's artists continued creating masterpieces. The late monuments of 18 Rabbit's reign showed technical skill and artistic vision that represent the peak of Maya achievement. These works would outlast the political system that created them, carrying Copan's intellectual legacy into an uncertain future. Quirigua's coup and the fall of Copan. 25 miles north of Copan, in a river valley thick with jungle, another Maya city had quietly grown in the shadow of its powerful neighbor. Quirigua began as little more than a trading post, strategically located where the Motagua River carried jade from highland quarries toward the Caribbean coast. For 3 centuries, its rulers paid tribute to Copan's smoke dynasty and remained content with their subordinate status. Everything changed when a young king named Kak Tiliuchan Yopat took Quirigua's throne in 724 CE. His name meant fire-burning sky lightning god, announcing ambitions that matched his grandiose title. This upstart ruler would topple one of the Maya world's most established dynasties and rewrite the political map of southeastern Mesoamerica. The relationship between Copan and Quirigua had always been complex. Copan's kings needed jade to maintain their divine status and fund their diplomatic networks. Quirigua controlled the river routes that carried this precious stone from mountain quarries to lowland markets. Tribute flowed upriver while protection flowed down, a rurkine, arrangement that benefited both cities but left Quirigua in a clearly subordinate position. Archaeological evidence suggests that Copan's rulers had installed Quirigua's dynasty centuries earlier, creating a client kingdom that would secure their jade supplies. Quirigua's early monuments use artistic styles borrowed from Copan. Their hieroglyphic texts acknowledge their dependent status. Their rulers performed the rituals of vassalage that maintained cosmic order throughout the Maya world. But Kak Tiliu harbored different dreams. Perhaps he resented his city's subordinate status. Perhaps he saw opportunity in Copan's growing problems. Perhaps he simply possessed the ambition that drives successful revolutionaries throughout history. Whatever his motivations, he began planning rebellion from the moment he took power. The young king's first step was building alliances with Copan's enemies. Calakmul, the great snake dynasty that had warred with Tikal for centuries, was always eager to support rebels against established order. Archaeological evidence suggests that Kake Tiliu received diplomatic support and possibly military advisors from this distant but powerful ally. He also cultivated relationships with independent Maya cities that resented Copan's dominance. Trade agreements, marriage alliances, and shared ritual obligations gradually created a network of potential supporters. By 738 CE, Kayak Tiliu commanded enough outside support to risk open confrontation with his former overlords. The rebellion came to a head during a ritual encounter that was supposed to reinforce the traditional relationship between the two cities. Copan's great king Uasaklajun Uba Kawil, the glorious 18-rabbit, traveled to Quirigua for ceremonies that would renew his vassal's oath of loyalty. Instead, he walked into a carefully planned trap. Maya warfare followed elaborate protocols that emphasized capture over killing. The goal was to take high-ranking prisoners who could be sacrificed in public ceremonies that demonstrated divine favor. Kak Tiliu's warriors overwhelmed 18 rabbits' escort and captured the great king alive, achieving the ultimate prize in Maya political competition. The capture sent shockwaves throughout the southeastern Maya world. 18 Rabbit had ruled Copan for 43 years and commissioned some of the finest artworks in Maya history. His dynasty traced its ancestry back 3 centuries to the legendary founder Yax Kukmo. He was supposed to be under divine protection, blessed by the gods, and supported by powerful allies. Kaktilu wasted no time exploiting his victory. On May 3rd, 738 CE, a date carefully chosen for its astronomical significance, he publicly executed 18 Rabbit in Quirigua's main plaza. Maya texts describe the event as chopping, probably referring to decapitation. The sacrifice was timed to coincide with the heliacal rising of Venus, ensuring maximum cosmic impact. The execution wasn't just political theater, it was theological revolution. By successfully sacrificing Copan's divine king, Kaktilu demonstrated that the gods had withdrawn their protection from the old order. Quirigua's patron deities had proven stronger than Copan's ancient powers. The cosmic hierarchy that had justified centuries of political arrangements had been turned upside down. Copan's response to this catastrophe reveals the depth of the crisis. The great city, which had dominated Maya politics for centuries, couldn't even organize effective revenge. 18 Rabbit's successor, Kakjoplaj Chan Kawil, spent most of his reign simply trying to maintain internal stability. The ambitious construction projects that had made Copan famous ended abruptly. Trade networks collapsed as allies switched sides or declared independence. Coctiliu used his newfound prestige to transform Quirigua from a minor trading center into a major power. He embarked on ambitious construction projects that rivaled Copan's greatest achievements. The monuments he commissioned celebrated his victory and justified his rebellion in terms of cosmic destiny rather than political opportunism. Quirigua's stelae from this period are among the tallest in the Maya world, some reaching over 30 feet in height. These massive monuments required sophisticated engineering to quarry, transport, and erect. They demonstrate that Coctiliu commanded resources and labor forces that matched those of traditional great powers. The artistic program of these monuments reveals careful planning designed to legitimize the new political order. Coctiliu appears in regalia that equals or surpasses that worn by Copan's former kings. His portraits emphasize divine connections and cosmic authority. Hieroglyphic texts rewrite regional history to present Quirigua's rebellion as the fulfillment of ancient prophecies. The new king also sponsored innovations in Maya art and writing. Quirigua's sculptors developed techniques for carving three-dimensional figures that seem to emerge from stone backgrounds. Their hieroglyphic inscriptions include some of the most complex texts in Maya literature, demonstrating intellectual achievements that match their political successes. But Coctiliu's triumph created new problems even as it solved old ones. Ruling an expanded kingdom required different skills than leading a rebellion. The jade trade that had made Quirigua wealthy became more difficult to control as political relationships shifted throughout the region. Other subordinate cities began wondering if they too might successfully challenge their overlords. The ecological problems that had weakened Copan began affecting Quirigua as well. Deforestation, soil erosion, and climate change didn't respect political boundaries. The expanded population that Coctiliu's victories had attracted strained local resources and required new solutions to old problems. By the end of the 8th century, both cities faced the same challenges that confronted Maya civilization throughout Mesoamerica. Environmental degradation, political fragmentation, and social unrest threatened the foundations of classic Maya society. The dramatic reversal of fortune between Copan and Quirigua would prove to be part of a larger transformation that would reshape the entire Maya world. Coctiliu died in 785 CE, having ruled for 61 years and completely transformed his city's fortunes. His successors continued his building programs and maintained Quirigua's independence, but they never again achieved the dramatic successes of the rebellion generation. The moment when a minor city could topple a major power through surprise and audacity was passing, replaced by an era when survival itself would become the primary goal. Cities of the Deep South, Dos Pilas, Aguateca. In the heart of Guatemala's rainforest, where rivers through endless green, Maya engineers built cities that were fortresses from the day they were founded. This was the Petexbatun region, where warfare wasn't ceremonial display, but desperate struggle for survival. Here, defensive walls rose alongside temple pyramids. Moats surrounded palaces. Every architectural decision reflected the reality of perpetual conflict. Dos Pilas emerged in the 7th century as an outpost of distant Tikal. The name means two wells, referring to natural water sources that attracted settlement in this otherwise challenging landscape. But this wasn't a peaceful farming community. Dos Pilas was built by warriors for warriors in a region where strength determined survival. The city's founding reflects the broader militarization of late classic Maya society. As population pressures increased and resources grew scarce, traditional diplomatic solutions gave way to armed competition. Elite families that had previously settled disputes through marriage alliances and tribute arrangements now hired professional armies and built fortified capitals. Dos Pilas's first ruler, Balaj Chan Kawil, arrived around 648 CE with backing from Tikal's royal house. His mission was to establish a forward base that could project power into the Pasion River Valley and counter the growing influence of Calakmul's Snake dynasty. Archaeological evidence suggests he brought skilled architects, trained soldiers, and enough wealth to begin construction immediately. The city that grew from these martial beginnings differed dramatically from earlier Maya centers. Instead of open plazas designed for public ceremonies, Dos Pilas featured restricted courtyards that could be easily defended. Rather than symbolic ball courts, it built practical training grounds for warrior societies. Even the royal palace incorporated defensive features that turned residence into fortress. Balaj Chan Kawil's monuments reveal the mindset of this new generation of Maya rulers. Traditional texts that emphasized divine legitimacy and cosmic harmony gave way to historical narratives focused on military victories and territorial conquests. These weren't kings who ruled through ceremony and tradition, but warlords who maintained power through demonstrated strength. The king's most dramatic victory came in 679 CE when his forces defeated and captured Nun Ujol Chak, ruler of nearby Sabal. Maya texts describe the battle as a star war, timed to coincide with the heliacal rising of Venus. But this wasn't traditional ceremonial combat. It was systematic conquest designed to eliminate political rivals and absorb their resources. Archaeological evidence from this period shows increasing sophistication in Maya military technology. Obsidian-tipped spears replaced ceremonial clubs. Cotton armor gave way to more effective protection made from multiple layers of quilted fabric. Warriors trained in formation fighting that maximized the impact of coordinated attacks. The success of Dos Pilas inspired the foundation of sister cities throughout the region. Aguateca, built on a defensive ridge overlooking Lake Pitexbatun, became the most sophisticated example of Maya military architecture. Natural stone cliffs provided protection on three sides. Artificial walls completed the fortifications, creating an impregnable refuge that could shelter the entire royal court during times of crisis. Aguateca's defenses reflect hard-won experience with siege warfare. Multiple ring walls forced attackers to overcome several barriers before reaching the city center. Hidden sally ports allowed defenders to launch surprise counterattacks. Underground cisterns ensured water supplies during extended sieges. Every feature demonstrated that Maya warfare had evolved far beyond ritualized combat. The royal palace at Aguateca incorporated these defensive lessons into its very design. Rather than the open courtyards typical of earlier Maya architecture, it featured secure compounds that could function independently if other areas were compromised. Storage rooms held supplies for extended emergencies. Escape tunnels provided alternative exits if primary routes were blocked. Daily life in these militarized cities reflected their martial character. Archaeological evidence shows that ordinary residents learned crafts related to warfare and defense. Households produced obsidian projectile points. Workshops manufactured cotton armor and wooden shields. Even children's toys included miniature weapons and fortifications. The arts of Dos Pilas and Aguateca celebrated military themes with unprecedented directness. Stone monuments depicted captured enemies in unprecedented detail, showing individual prisoners with recognizable faces and personal ornaments. These weren't symbolic representations of abstract concepts, but historical records of specific victories over named opponents. The Dos Pilas stairway represents this artistic evolution. Hieroglyphic steps chronicle the dynasty's military achievements in prose that reads like epic poetry. Each campaign is described with literary flourishes that transform battlefield victories into cosmic dramas, featuring kings as divine warriors battling forces of chaos. But military success created new vulnerabilities, even as it solved old problems. The resources devoted to warfare and fortification couldn't be used for agriculture or trade. Professional armies required constant pay and regular victories to maintain loyalty. Defensive positions that provided security also limited growth and expansion. By the 8th century, the very success of the Pitexbatun dynasties began working against them. Their victories had eliminated many traditional rivals, but they had also inspired new enemies who adopted their military innovations. Other regions developed their own warrior kings and fortified cities, creating an arms race that consumed increasing amounts of wealth and manpower. The ecological costs of constant warfare became impossible to ignore. Deforestation accelerated as armies needed wood for weapons, fortifications, and fuel. Agricultural land was abandoned as farmers fled to protected areas. Trade routes were disrupted by ongoing conflicts, reducing access to essential resources and exotic goods. Archaeological evidence from the late 8th century shows clear signs of stress in both cities. Construction projects were left unfinished, elite residences were abandoned, defensive walls were hastily reinforced with recycled materials from older buildings. The confident architectural statements of earlier generations gave way to desperate improvisation. The end came suddenly and violently. Around 760 CE, unknown enemies overran Dos Pilas despite its formidable defenses. The royal palace was burned. Monument texts were deliberately defaced. The population scattered to refugee settlements scattered throughout the jungle. Archaeological excavations reveal layers of ash and destruction that speak to systematic demolition rather than casual abandonment. Aguateca survived longer, protected by its superior natural defenses and more sophisticated fortifications. But isolation proved as dangerous as direct attack. Cut off from trade networks and agricultural resources, the city slowly starved. By 830 CE, even this mighty fortress had been abandoned, its walls intact, but its people gone. The fall of the Pitexbatun cities marked the end of an experiment in militarized Maya civilization. Their innovations in warfare and defense would influence later developments throughout Mesoamerica. But their ultimate failure demonstrated that military solutions alone couldn't resolve the deeper problems facing late classic Maya society. Modern archaeologists have found these ruined cities particularly revealing because their rapid abandonment preserved details of daily life that slower decline would have obscured. Intact households show how ordinary people adapted to life under constant threat. Weapon caches reveal the tools of Maya warfare. Burned archives preserve the last thoughts of a civilization under siege. The legacy of Dos Pilas and Aguateca extends beyond their military innovations. These cities proved that Maya civilization was capable of rapid adaptation when faced with new challenges. Their experiments in defensive architecture influenced later builders throughout the region. Their artistic celebrations of military achievement created new forms of historical narrative that would echo through subsequent centuries. But perhaps their most important lesson concerns the limits of force as a solution to social problems. The warrior kings of the Pitexbatun achieved remarkable short-term successes through military innovation and aggressive expansion. Yet their victories ultimately consumed the resources and social cohesion that had made their achievements possible in the first place. Everyday Maya, life beyond the palaces. While kings carved their names into stone monuments and priests calculated the movements of planets, ordinary Maya people lived lives that revolved around corn, family, and the endless cycle of seasons. In small villages scattered throughout the jungle, millions of farmers, craftspeople, and traders created the foundation that supported one of history's most sophisticated civilizations. Maya houses were built to last decades, not centuries like the royal palaces. Families constructed rectangular structures with stone foundations, wooden posts, and walls made from poles covered with mud plaster. Steep thatched roofs shed tropical rains and provided excellent insulation against heat and cold. These weren't primitive shelters, but carefully designed homes that maximized comfort using locally available materials. Inside, the layout reflected practical needs and cultural values. A central hearth provided cooking fire and social focus. 3 stones held clay pots above glowing coals, just as Maya families do today. Sleeping areas were separated by hanging mats or wooden partitions. Storage baskets held corn, beans, tools, and family treasures. Everything had its proper place in spaces designed for efficiency and harmony. The Maya day began before dawn with the sound of women grinding corn on stone medates. This wasn't simple food preparation, but sacred ritual that connected each family to the gods who had created humans from maize. The rhythmic grinding produced masa, the corn dough that would become tortillas, tamales, or ceremonial drinks. Mothers taught daughters these techniques, passing down knowledge that was both practical and spiritual. Children learned through observation and participation rather than formal schooling. Boys followed their fathers to fields and workshops, gradually mastering the skills they would need as adults. Girls helped their mothers with cooking, weaving, and household management. By adolescence, most young people possessed the practical knowledge necessary for independent survival. Maya agriculture was far more sophisticated than simple slash-and-burn farming. Families created complex polycultures that maximized productivity while maintaining soil fertility. Corn provided carbohydrates and grew tall enough to support climbing beans. Beans fixed nitrogen that fertilized the corn. Squash spread across the ground, shading soil and preventing erosion. Together, these three sisters provided complete nutrition while improving rather than depleting the land. Beyond these basics, Maya farmers cultivated dozens of other crops. Cacao trees grew in shaded groves, their pods harvested to make chocolate drinks reserved for special occasions. Chili peppers added heat to daily meals. Avocados provided healthy fats. Papayas, guavas, and other fruits supplied vitamins and natural sugars. Cotton plants produced fiber for clothing and trade. Market days brought excitement to routine life. Farmers carried surplus crops to regional centers where they traded for manufactured goods, exotic foods, inklat, and raw materials. These markets were more than economic institutions. They were social gatherings where news was shared, marriages arranged, and cultural traditions reinforced through interaction between communities. Maya women were skilled weavers whose textiles rivaled any produced in the ancient world. Using backstrap looms that could be set up anywhere, they created complex patterns that identified family, community, and social status. The designs weren't merely decorative, but carried meaning that could be read like writing by those who understood the symbolic language of Maya textiles. Colors held special significance in Maya weaving. Red came from cochineal insects and represented blood, life, and divine power. Blue was extracted from indigo plants and symbolized water, sky, and eternity. Yellow dyes were made from various flowers and represented corn, the sun, and human flesh. Purple, the most expensive color, was reserved for nobility and came from murex shells gathered from distant coasts. Pottery production was another specialized craft that combined practical function with artistic expression. Maya ceramics served every aspect of daily life: cooking, storage, serving, and ritual use. The finest pieces were painted with scenes from mythology or decorated with hieroglyphic texts that modern scholars are still learning to read. Religious practice permeated every aspect of ordinary Maya life. Household shrines honored family ancestors and local spirits. Agricultural rituals marked planting and harvest seasons. Life cycle ceremonies celebrated births, coming of age, marriages, and deaths. These weren't separate from daily routine, but integrated into work, family relationships, and community responsibilities. Curing remained largely in the hands of traditional healers who combined herbal medicine with spiritual practice. Maya pharmacology was remarkably sophisticated, using hundreds of plants to treat everything from headaches to serious diseases. Many remedies developed by ancient Maya healers are still used in rural communities today, testament to their practical effectiveness. Music and dance provided entertainment and spiritual expression. Ordinary people couldn't afford the elaborate instruments used in royal ceremonies, but they created their own versions using gourds, wood, and animal skins. Community festivals featured dancing that could last for days, strengthening social bonds while honoring the gods. Education happened informally, but was taken seriously. Elders told stories that preserved historical memory and taught moral lessons. Skilled craftspeople accepted apprentices who learned through years of patient practice. Ritual specialists passed down knowledge of ceremonies, calendars, and healing practices that connected communities to their cosmic environment. Trade networks linked even small villages to the broader Maya world. Local products were exchanged for goods that couldn't be produced locally: salt from coastal lagoons, obsidian from highland volcanoes, jade from mountain quarries, and exotic feathers from tropical birds. These exchanges spread ideas as well as goods, ensuring that innovations developed in one region eventually reached communities throughout Maya territory. Family relationships provided the foundation for social organization. Extended families lived near each other, creating neighborhood clusters where relatives shared labor, resources, and childcare. Marriage alliances connected families within communities and between villages, creating networks of mutual obligation that provided security in uncertain times. Death was seen as transformation rather than ending. Families buried their deceased beneath house floors, keeping ancestors close to the living. Grave goods reflected beliefs about continued existence in other realms. The dead weren't gone, but remained present as spiritual guides and protectors who could be consulted through dreams and ritual. This rich fabric of daily life provided the foundation that supported Maya civilization's greatest achievements. Without millions of farmers producing food surpluses, architects couldn't have built great temples. Without skilled craftspeople creating trade goods, merchants couldn't have funded long-distance commerce. Without stable families raising educated children, scribes couldn't have developed sophisticated writing systems. The everyday Maya didn't leave their names carved in stone, but their contributions echoed through every aspect of their civilization. They were the real builders of the Maya world, creating, through countless small decisions and daily actions, the cultural foundation that allowed their society to flourish for over 2 millennia. The role of women. In the shadow of towering pyramids and carved stone monuments celebrating male rulers, Maya women wielded power that historians are only beginning to understand. They weren't merely wives and mothers, but active participants in political, economic, and religious life. Some rose to become queens who commanded armies and commissioned great architectural projects. Others served as priestesses, merchants, scribes, and artists whose contributions shaped Maya civilization in fundamental ways. Lady Cabal ruled the great city of El Peru Waka from 682 to 741 CE, holding the title Supreme Warrior and commanding respect that rivaled any male king. Archaeological evidence shows she commissioned major construction projects, received tribute from subordinate rulers, and led military campaigns against rival cities. Her tomb, discovered in 2012, contained weapons alongside traditional feminine grave goods, reflecting her dual role as warrior and woman. The institution of female rulership wasn't unusual in Maya society. When dynasties faced succession crises or when male heirs were too young to rule effectively, women stepped forward to maintain political stability. Lady Six Sky ruled Naranjo for over 60 years, from 682 to 741 CE. Her monuments celebrate military victories and architectural achievements that matched those of her male contemporaries. These weren't puppet rulers governed by male advisors. Hieroglyphic texts show that female rulers used the same royal titles as kings, performed identical ceremonies, and claimed direct relationships with patron gods. They appeared in art wearing elaborate costumes that emphasized their divine authority. Their commands were obeyed, their decisions respected, their achievements commemorated in permanent stone. But political power was only one aspect of women's roles in Maya society. Religious authority provided another avenue for female influence. Lady priests served important deities, particularly those associated with moon, water, and fertility. They performed ceremonies that maintained cosmic balance, interpreted astronomical events, and provided spiritual guidance to entire communities. The moon goddess Xchel was one of the most important deities in the Maya pantheon, governing childbirth, medicine, and textile production. Her priestesses were powerful figures who combined religious authority with practical skills. They served as midwives, healers, and teachers, providing services that were essential to community survival and prosperity. Maya creation mythology emphasized the importance of female principles in cosmic balance. The primordial grandmother who appears in the Popol Vuh helped create the current race of humans from corn. Mother goddesses were responsible for agriculture, the foundation of civilization. These weren't abstract theological concepts, but active spiritual forces that required female intermediaries to access properly. Economic activities provided opportunities for women to achieve independence and influence. Maya markets were largely controlled by female merchants who specialized in textiles, pottery, food preparation, and other goods associated with household production. These weren't small-scale local exchanges, but sophisticated commercial networks that connected communities across hundreds of miles. Textile production was particularly important as both economic activity and artistic expression. Maya women created fabrics that served as currency in regional trade networks. The finest textiles were worth more than gold ornaments and were reserved for royal and religious use. Master weavers enjoyed high social status and trained apprentices who perpetuated their techniques across generations. The complexity of Maya textile designs required mathematical and artistic skills that rivaled those of official court artists. Weavers created patterns that incorporated astronomical observations, historical events, and mythological narratives. These weren't simple decorative elements, but sophisticated symbolic systems that preserved cultural knowledge in portable form. Archaeological evidence shows that women participated actively in craft production beyond textiles. They made pottery, carved bone ornaments, and worked precious stones into jewelry. Some workshops appear to have been organized and managed by women who controlled both production and distribution of their goods. Family relationships gave women authority that extended beyond their immediate households. Maya society was organized around extended family groups where senior women often served as decision makers and dispute arbitrators. Grandmothers were particularly respected figures whose advice was sought on matters ranging from agricultural timing to marriage arrangements. Marriage alliances were crucial elements in Maya political strategy, and women played active roles in negotiating and maintaining these relationships. Royal marriages connected dynasties across vast distances, creating networks of mutual obligation that could be activated during military campaigns or economic crises. Women weren't passive pawns in these arrangements, but active participants who understood their political importance. The education of elite women included literacy training that allowed them to read and write hieroglyphic texts. Inscriptions show women commissioning their own monuments, corresponding with rulers in other cities, and participating in religious ceremonies that required knowledge of complex ritual procedures. Female scribes appear in art performing the same functions as their male counterparts. Archaeological excavations of elite residences reveal that women's quarters weren't separate from centers of power, but integrated into palace complexes where political decisions were made. Female rulers held court in the same throne rooms used by kings. Their personal apartments were located adjacent to administrative areas, suggesting active participation in governmental activities. Medical knowledge was another area where women achieved prominence and respect. Female healers specialized in childbirth, pediatric care, and treatments for diseases that particularly affected women. They maintained gardens of medicinal plants and passed down knowledge of herbal remedies through apprenticeships that could last for years. The spiritual aspects of healing were closely connected to female religious authority. Maya concepts of illness often involved supernatural causes that required ritual as well as medical treatment. Female healers served as intermediaries with spirit world, performing ceremonies that were believed to address root causes of disease rather than merely treating symptoms. Artistic production provided another avenue for female achievement. While men dominated monumental sculpture and architecture, women excelled in portable arts that required different but equally sophisticated skills. Painted ceramics, carved jade ornaments, and featherwork costumes created by women were valued throughout Mesoamerica. The iconography of Maya art frequently features powerful female figures. Goddesses appear as active participants in cosmic dramas rather than passive observers. Female rulers are shown performing the same ceremonies as male kings. Even mythological narratives often feature heroic women whose actions determine the fate of gods and humans alike. Contemporary Maya communities maintain many traditional patterns of female authority and achievement. Women continue to serve as spiritual leaders, craft specialists, and family decision-makers. Their roles in preserving cultural traditions and adapting to modern challenges echo the contributions of their ancient predecessors. The archaeological record suggests that Maya women enjoyed more opportunities for achievement and recognition than their counterparts in many other ancient civilizations. While gender roles certainly existed and influenced individual options, they weren't rigid barriers that prevented capable women from achieving positions of authority and respect. Understanding the full scope of women's contributions requires looking beyond royal monuments to examine household remains, craft workshops, and burial goods that reveal daily realities. These sources show that women were active participants in every aspect of Maya civilization, from subsistence agriculture to international diplomacy, from local religious ceremonies to cosmic mythology that explain the nature of existence itself. The collapse begins, 750 to 900 CE. Something was wrong in the Maya world. After 6 centuries of growth and achievement, cracks appeared in the foundation of civilization. Cities that had thrived for generations began showing signs of stress. Construction projects were abandoned halfway to completion. Trade networks that had connected distant regions started breaking down. population centers that had housed tens of thousands of people were gradually abandoned. The changes began subtly in the mid-8th century. Royal courts that had commissioned elaborate monuments every few years stopped erecting new stelae. Palace complexes that had bustled with administrators, scribes, and visiting dignitaries grew quiet. Agricultural terraces that had supported dense populations were left to erode back into jungle. The rhythm of Maya life, which had pulsed steadily for centuries, began to falter. Climate records preserved in lake sediments and cave formations reveal one crucial factor: drought. Beginning around 750 CE, rainfall patterns that had supported Maya agriculture for over a millennium became irregular and insufficient. Years of normal precipitation were followed by seasons of devastating dryness. The predictable wet seasons that farmers had counted on for planting and harvesting became unreliable gambles. But this wasn't the first drought the Maya had faced. Their ancestors had survived earlier dry periods through careful water management, crop diversification, and social cooperation. What made this crisis different was the scale of population it affected and the reduced resilience of overstressed agricultural systems. By 750 CE, Maya territory supported perhaps 10 million people, more than it had ever sustained before. Centuries of success had encouraged growth that pushed agricultural productivity to its limits. Marginal lands that should have remained forested were cleared for farming. Wetlands were drained to create new fields. Even steep hillsides were terraced and planted, requiring constant maintenance to prevent erosion. This intensive agriculture worked well during periods of adequate rainfall. But when drought struck, the environmental damage became catastrophic. Deforested watersheds couldn't retain moisture during dry seasons. Exposed soils eroded into rivers and lakes, disrupting aquatic ecosystems that had provided protein and transportation. Agricultural systems that had been carefully balanced for centuries suddenly became sources of environmental degradation. Archaeological evidence shows that different regions experienced the crisis in different ways. Areas with reliable water sources, like the Puuc Hills of northern Yucatan, actually flourished during the late 8th and early 9th centuries. Cities like Uxmal and Kaba built some of their finest architecture during this period, suggesting they were able to attract refugees and resources from failing areas. But the great cities of the southern lowlands, Tikal, Calakmul, Palenke, Copan, faced impossible challenges. Their populations were too large to support with reduced agricultural productivity. Their political systems were too complex to maintain without the tribute and trade that had funded earlier expansion. Their religious authority was undermined by their apparent inability to ensure divine favor during the crisis. Political fragmentation accelerated as central authority weakened. Local nobles who had previously accepted royal control began asserting independence. Regional governors stopped sending tribute to distant capitals. Military commanders who had served royal interests started pursuing their own ambitions. The careful hierarchy that had organized Maya society for centuries began dissolving into competing factions. Warfare became more desperate and destructive. Earlier conflicts had followed rules that emphasized capture over killing and sought to demonstrate divine favor through ritualized combat. Late classic warfare was different, more brutal, more total, focused on eliminating rivals rather than simply defeating them. Archaeological evidence shows burned palaces, defaced monuments, and massacre sites that speak to unprecedented violence. The collapse of trade networks had cascading effects throughout Maya society. Craft specialists who had depended on exotic materials could no longer practice their trades. Merchants who had connected distant regions found their routes disrupted by political chaos. Elite families who had maintained status through conspicuous consumption of foreign goods were forced to rely on local resources that couldn't support their traditional lifestyle. Religious authority, which had provided legitimacy for Maya rulers throughout the classic period, came under question as traditional ceremonies failed to end the crisis. Priests who had promised that proper rituals would ensure divine favor were discredited by ongoing drought and social disorder. Some communities abandoned traditional religious practices entirely, while others intensified ritual activities in desperate attempts to restore cosmic balance. Written records from this period, preserved in the final monuments erected by failing dynasties, reveal the psychological impact of collapse. Kings who had previously celebrated victories and construction projects instead wrote about desperate attempts to maintain order. Inscriptions that had once proclaimed divine sanction now pleaded for supernatural intervention to end suffering. The speed of abandonment varied dramatically between different cities and regions. Some centers were deserted rapidly, their populations fleeing to areas that promised better survival prospects. Others experienced gradual decline that stretched over several generations, as families slowly drifted away rather than departing en masse. A few managed to maintain reduced populations through the worst of the crisis. Archaeological excavations reveal poignant details of these final days. Elaborate palaces were subdivided into smaller residential units as elite families lost the resources to maintain their traditional lifestyles. Sacred spaces were converted to practical uses as communities struggled to meet basic needs. Precious objects were buried in hidden caches, suggesting people hoped to return when conditions improved. The environmental consequences of collapse were as dramatic as the social effects. Without human management, agricultural terraces collapsed and were reclaimed by forest. Reservoirs filled with sediment and became breeding grounds for disease vectors. Carefully maintained transportation routes were blocked by fallen trees and landslides. The landscape itself bore witness to civilization's retreat. Yet the Maya collapse wasn't uniform or complete. While the great cities of the southern lowlands were abandoned, other regions adapted and survived. Northern Yucatan experienced a cultural renaissance during the Terminal Classic period. Highland Guatemala maintained viable communities that would later interact with Spanish colonizers. The Maya people endured, even as their political systems transformed. Understanding the causes of classic Maya collapse requires recognizing the interaction between environmental stress, political fragmentation, and social transformation. Drought provided the initial shock, but human responses to that shock determined whether communities survived or failed. Some regions developed successful adaptation strategies, while others were overwhelmed by cascading crises they couldn't resolve. The collapse marked the end of one phase of Maya civilization, but not the end of Maya culture. The people who abandoned the great cities carried their knowledge, traditions, and identity to new locations where they continued evolving. The architectural achievements and intellectual innovations of the classic period provided foundations for later developments that would continue until European contact and beyond. Modern climate science suggests that the droughts responsible for classic Maya collapse were part of natural cycles that continue affecting Central America today. Understanding how ancient communities responded to these challenges provides valuable insights for contemporary societies facing similar environmental stresses in an era of global climate change. The Terminal Classic Twilight. As the 9th century dawned, the Maya world was transforming in ways that defied simple explanation. This wasn't the sudden collapse that destroys civilizations overnight, but something more complex and mysterious. Cities that had dominated their regions for centuries were slowly emptying, while others experienced unexpected renaissance. Trade routes shifted like rivers changing course. Political power flowed toward new centers that embraced different values and attracted different kinds of leaders. The term Terminal Classic describes this period of transition when traditional Maya civilization was ending, but Maya culture continued evolving. Between 800 and 1000 CE, the southern lowlands that had been the heartland of classic period achievements gradually returned to jungle, while northern regions entered an era of innovation and expansion that would produce some of the most spectacular architecture in Maya history. Archaeological evidence reveals that abandonment wasn't uniform or sudden. Many cities experienced gradual population decline that stretched over several generations. Families left individually or in small groups rather than participating in mass migrations. Elite compounds were subdivided into smaller residential units as extended families lost the resources to maintain traditional lifestyles. Sacred spaces were converted to practical uses as communities prioritized survival over ceremony. Some regions managed the transition more successfully than others. The Puuc hills of northern Yucatan became magnets for refugees and resources flowing from abandoned southern cities. These limestone uplands had reliable water sources, productive soils, and strategic locations that connected highland and coastal trade networks. During the Terminal Classic, Puuc cities built some of the finest architecture in Maya history. Uxmal emerged as the greatest power in this northern renaissance. Its rulers commissioned palaces and temples that rivaled anything built during the Classic period. Peak, the nunnery quadrangle, with its intricate stone mosaics and perfect geometric proportions, demonstrated that Maya architectural achievement was reaching new heights even as traditional centers were being abandoned. The artistic style that developed in the Puuc region reflected changing cultural values. Classic period art had emphasized individual rulers and their divine connections. Terminal classic art was more abstract and geometric, focusing on architectural decoration rather than royal portraiture. This shift suggests that political authority was becoming less personalized and more institutional. Religious practices also evolved during this transitional period. Traditional ceremonies that had required elaborate royal sponsorship were simplified or abandoned. New rituals emerged that could be performed by smaller communities with limited resources. Sacred sites that had been exclusively controlled by elite families became more accessible to ordinary people seeking spiritual guidance during difficult times. The collapse of long-distance trade networks forced communities to become more self-sufficient. Craft specialists who had worked with imported materials learned to use local substitutes. Artistic traditions that had spread across the Maya world through commercial exchange became more regionalized. Cultural unity that had characterized classic period civilization gave way to increased local variation, but some connections persisted even as others were severed. Pilgrimage routes continued linking sacred sites across vast distances. Religious festivals provided opportunities for communities to maintain contact with distant relatives and trading partners. Shared mythological traditions ensured that different regions retained common cultural foundations even as their political systems diverged. The written record from this period reflects the stress and uncertainty of cultural transition. Final monuments erected by declining dynasties often expressed anxiety about maintaining divine favor and preserving traditional knowledge. Some inscriptions read like desperate appeals to the gods for intervention in human affairs. Others seem designed to preserve historical memory for future generations who might seek to restore past glory. Environmental factors continued playing crucial roles in determining which communities survived and which were abandoned. Areas with reliable water sources attracted settlers from drought-stricken regions. Communities that had developed sustainable agricultural practices were better positioned to weather climate instability. Locations that offered defensive advantages became refuges for populations fleeing political violence. The northern shift of Maya civilization wasn't simply a matter of people moving to better environments. It reflected fundamental changes in how Maya society was organized and what values were prioritized. Northern cities developed more egalitarian social structures and less centralized political systems. They emphasized trade and craftsmanship over military conquest and monumental architecture. Archaeological evidence suggests that some abandoned southern cities were reoccupied periodically by small groups who used them as bases for hunting, gathering, or religious ceremonies. These weren't permanent settlements, but seasonal camps that maintained connections between surviving communities and their ancestral homelands. The great centers weren't forgotten, just transformed in their meaning and function. The Terminal Classic period also saw the emergence of new ethnic identities and political alliances. Groups that had been subordinate during the Classic period began asserting independent cultural traditions. Regional languages that had been overshadowed by elite dialects experienced revivals. Local deities gained prominence as communities sought spiritual guidance from sources that seemed more accessible than distant royal ancestors. Artistic production continued during this transitional period, but took different forms than earlier traditions. Instead of large-scale sculpture and architecture, Terminal Classic artists focused on portable objects that could be traded or carried by mobile populations. Painted pottery reached new levels of sophistication. Textile production became more important as communities needed goods that could serve both practical and ceremonial functions. The end of royal patronage didn't mean the end of intellectual achievement. Mathematical and astronomical knowledge was preserved in communities of scholar priests who maintained traditional learning even as political systems collapsed around them. Some of the most sophisticated Maya texts date to this period. It's suggesting that intellectual life continued even when material prosperity declined. Trade patterns shifted toward maritime routes that connected Maya territory with other parts of Mesoamerica. The Caribbean coast became increasingly important as communities there developed new economic relationships with islands and mainland regions. These connections would prove crucial for cultural survival and adaptation during subsequent centuries. The Terminal Classic period demonstrates the resilience and adaptability of Maya civilization. Rather than simply ending when faced with unprecedented challenges, Maya culture transformed itself in ways that allowed essential traditions to survive while adapting to new circumstances. The apparent collapse of classic period civilization was actually a complex process of cultural evolution that would produce new forms of achievement and expression. Understanding this transitional period requires recognizing that civilizations rarely disappear entirely. Instead, they evolve in response to changing conditions, sometimes in ways that appear to represent decline, but actually represent adaptation to new realities. The Maya experience during the Terminal Classic offers insights into how human societies respond to environmental stress, political fragmentation, and cultural transformation. Chichen Itza and the Northern Shift. The jungle grows quiet. Cities that once hummed with life now stand empty. But the Maya people do not vanish. They move, they adapt, they build anew. In the northern reaches of the Yucatan, where cenotes pierce the limestone like sacred wells, a new power awakens. Chichen Itza rises from the scrubland, different from anything that came before. This is not the old Maya way. This is something transformed. The Great Pyramid of Kukulkan dominates the skyline. Its stepped sides catch the morning light, casting shadows that dance with the seasons. On the spring equinox, these shadows create a serpent of light that slithers down the northern staircase. The feathered serpent descends to earth, just as the prophecies foretold. But Kukulkan is not purely Maya. He is Quetzalcoatl, the wind god of distant lands. Trade routes now stretch far beyond the jungle. Merchants from the Mexican highlands walk these plazas. Toltec warriors train in these courtyards. The Maya world expands beyond its green borders. The ball court at Chichen Itza dwarfs all others. Its walls rise like canyon cliffs, carved with scenes of cosmic battle. The game played here determines more than victory. It shapes the very order of things. Winners earn glory. Losers might earn something else entirely. Calakmul statues recline on temple platforms, their stone eyes watching the horizon. These figures hold offering bowls on their bellies, ready to receive gifts for the gods. Rain, jade, incense, blood, all pour into their eternal embrace. The Maya have learned new ways to speak with the divine. The great cenote lies at the city's heart, a natural well that plunges into darkness. Pilgrims travel from across Mesoamerica to cast offerings into its depths. Gold, jade, pottery, and sometimes people disappear into the sacred waters. The cenote connects this world to the next, a doorway between realms. Architecture tells the story of change. Columns now support roofs instead of heavy stone. Spaces open up, light floods in. The old Maya preference for shadow and mystery gives way to something more expansive. These buildings speak of confidence, of power that no longer needs to hide. The observatory stands apart from other structures, its circular tower tracking celestial movements with precise windows. Venus still matters, the moon still guides rituals. But the Maya now chart stars unknown to their ancestors. Knowledge flows like water, finding new channels. Warriors carry different weapons now. Obsidian clubs replace traditional spears. Shields bear new symbols. The art of war evolves alongside the art of peace. Chichen Itza becomes a military power that can project force across vast distances. Merchants establish new trade networks. Copper bells from the west ring in temple ceremonies. Turquoise from the north adorns noble necks. The Maya world becomes part of something larger, a Mesoamerican web of commerce and culture that stretches from ocean to ocean. The old dynastic system fades. No single king rules Chichen Itza. Instead, a council of lords shares power. Multipal, they call it joint rule. The Age of God Kings passes into something more complex, more collaborative. Feathered serpent imagery dominates the new art. Kukulkan's form winds around columns, slithers across walls, and coils around doorways. The old jaguar gods still lurk in shadowed corners, but the sky serpent now commands the heights. Chichen Itza's influence reaches far beyond its walls. Smaller cities copy its architecture. New ceremonies spread through the land. The Maya adapt their ancient ways to fit this northern vision. Change becomes not defeat but transformation. The city's wealth grows from salt and trade. Coastal salt beds produce the white gold that every civilization needs. Trade routes carry this precious commodity to distant markets. Chichen Itza becomes rich not from conquest but from commerce. Priests speak in new tongues now. Nahuatl words mix with Maya syllables. The sacred calendar still turns, but new festivals mark its passage. The Maya pantheon welcomes foreign gods while keeping their own. The divine becomes more inclusive, more varied. Cenote rituals intensify during troubled times. Drought brings desperate offerings. War brings captives for sacrifice. The sacred well receives whatever the city needs to give. The Maya understanding of divine reciprocity deepens and darkens. The Great Ball Court's acoustics create wonder. A whisper at one end carries clearly to the other. Clapping hands produces echoes that sound like bird calls. The Maya design their sacred spaces to enhance the mystical experience. Architecture becomes a tool for transformation. Chichen Itza's power eventually peaks and begins to wane, but its influence lingers. The northern Maya have learned to survive change by embracing it. They have shown that Maya civilization can adapt without losing its essential character. The feathered serpent's shadow still falls across the pyramid steps. Tourists now witness what pilgrims once experienced. The Maya gift for merging practical and sacred, earthly and divine, continues to inspire wonder. The northern shift proves that endings can become beginnings. Puuc style and Uxmal's beauty, south of Chichen Itza in the rolling hills of the Puuc region, a different kind of renaissance unfolds. Here, Maya architects discover new forms of beauty. Stone becomes poetry. Buildings sing with geometric harmony. Uxmal rises from the hilltops like a vision of perfection. Its name means thrice built, and indeed the city seems to reinvent itself with each generation. But the final form achieves something extraordinary, a marriage of function and beauty that takes the breath away. The Pyramid of the Magician dominates the skyline, its oval base unique among Maya structures. Legend says a dwarf built it in a single night, helped by his sorceress mother. The truth involves more time but no less magic. Maya engineers solve the problem of building on uneven ground by creating something unprecedented. Puuc architecture abandons the heavy decoration of earlier periods. Instead, it achieves elegance through proportion and subtle detail. Walls rise smooth and clean, then burst into intricate stone mosaics at the top. The contrast creates visual music, quiet verses leading to brilliant choruses. The governor's palace at Uxmal stretches across the hilltop like a horizontal poem. Its facade displays thousands of precisely cut stones arranged in geometric patterns. Each element serves the whole. No detail exists without purpose. The Maya have learned to make less into more. Corbel arches reach new heights in Puuc buildings. These false arches, built by overlapping stones, create spaces that feel impossibly light and airy. The old Maya preference for thick walls and small rooms gives way to something more graceful. Architecture breathes. The nunnery quadrangle at Uxmal demonstrates the Puuc mastery of space. 4 buildings surround a central courtyard, each decorated with different motifs. Serpents, latticework, small houses, and feathered patterns create a symphony in stone. The Maya have learned to make buildings converse with each other. Rainfall determines everything in the Puuc hills. No rivers flow here. No cenotes provide water. Instead, the Maya develop elaborate systems to capture and store rainwater. Chultuns, underground cisterns, dot the landscape. Architecture serves survival. The rain god Chalk dominates Puuc art. His long-nosed face appears everywhere, on corners, over doorways, marching across facades in endless repetition. The Maya never let themselves forget their dependence on the sky's gift. Beauty serves worship. Kaaba connects to Uxmal by a raised stone road that runs perfectly straight for miles. The Sakbe links the two cities physically and spiritually. At Kaaba, the Palace of Mass presents hundreds of chalk faces covering every surface. The building becomes a prayer made stone. Sail demonstrates Puuc engineering skill. The three-story palace rises from the jungle floor, its upper levels supported by columns instead of solid walls. The Maya have learned to build up instead of out, creating vertical space in a horizontal world. Labna showcases Puuc artistry at its finest. The arch here frames the jungle like a window into paradise. Intricate stone mosaics cover every surface. The Maya transform functional architecture into pure art. Buildings become sculpture. The Puuc style spreads throughout the northern Maya world. Chien's architecture adopts similar principles. Rio Bec builders experiment with Puuc techniques. The Maya share knowledge like they share trade goods. Innovation becomes collective. Astronomical alignments still matter in Puuc buildings. The governor's palace at Uxmal aligns with the southernmost rising of Venus. The Maya continue to build their cities in harmony with celestial cycles. The stars still guide their architecture. Puuc artists develop new techniques for stone carving. They learn to create undercuts that make stone seem to float. Shadows become part of the design. The Maya discover that absence can be as powerful as presence in creating beauty. The Puuc region becomes a laboratory for architectural innovation. Builders experiment with new forms, new proportions, new ways of organizing space. The Maya tradition and innovation can dance together. Change serves continuity. Water management reaches new sophistication in Puuc cities. Elaborate systems channel rainwater from rooftops to storage areas. The Maya turn architectural necessity into engineering art. Survival becomes elegant. The House of the Turtles at Uxmal demonstrates Puuc restraint. Its decoration consists entirely of stone turtles marching around the building's upper edge. The Maya learn that simple repetition can create powerful rhythm. Architecture becomes music. Puuc cities flourish for centuries, then gradually fade. But their influence outlasts their power. The principles of Puuc design, proportion, elegance, integration with environment, continue to inspire Maya builders. Beauty proves more lasting than politics. The geometric patterns of Puuc facades echo in modern Maya textiles. The sense of proportion influences contemporary architecture. The Puuc legacy lives on in different forms. The Maya gift for transforming stone into song continues to inspire wonder. Mayapan, the last confederacy. The great cities have fallen silent. Chichen Itza's power wanes. The northern Maya world fragments into competing kingdoms. But from this chaos emerges one final attempt at unity. Mayapan rises as the last great Maya capital, the final flowering of a civilization that refuses to die. The city's walls enclose nearly 7 square miles. Inside, over 12,000 people make their homes. Mayapan becomes the largest Maya city ever built, a testament to the enduring power of Maya civilization. The people have learned to live together in unprecedented numbers. The Copan dynasty rules Mayapan, but not as god-kings of old. Instead, they govern through a confederation of noble families. Representatives from across the northern Maya world maintain houses in the city. Political power becomes shared rather than concentrated. Kukulkan's pyramid stands at Mayapan's heart, though smaller than its model at Chichen Itza. The feathered serpent still commands respect, but his power no longer dominates absolutely. The Maya pantheon grows more diverse, more inclusive. Many gods share the sacred space. The city's architecture tells the story of changing times. Buildings mix styles from different periods. Puuc geometric patterns blend with Chichen Itza's columns. The Maya create architectural fusion, honoring their past while adapting to their present. Craft workshops line Mayapan's streets. Obsidian workers shape tools and weapons. Potters create vessels for daily use and ritual. Textile weavers produce the finest fabrics in the Maya world. The city becomes a center of production as well as politics. The cenote at Mayapan's center receives offerings from across the Confederation. Pilgrims travel from distant provinces to cast jade and copal into its depths. The sacred well becomes a symbol of unity, a place where different Maya communities can worship together. Trade networks stretch from Mayapan to every corner of the Maya world. Coastal salt, highland obsidian, jungle cacao all flow through the city's markets. The Maya economy becomes more interconnected than ever before. Commerce binds the Confederation together. The Itza people, former rulers of Chichen Itza, maintain their own quarter in Mayapan. Old rivals learn to coexist. The city becomes a living symbol of Maya adaptability. Former enemies become reluctant partners in survival. Scribes in Mayapan preserve ancient knowledge while recording new history. Books of prophecy mix with practical calendars. The Maya writing system continues to evolve, adding new symbols for new concepts. Knowledge flows like water, finding new channels. The ball court at Mayapan hosts games that determine more than sport. Political alliances form and dissolve based on ritual contests. The Maya continue to use sacred games to negotiate worldly power. Religion and politics dance together. Ritual deposits throughout the city tell of changing religious practices. Turquoise from the north mixes with jade from the south. The Maya pantheon becomes more cosmopolitan. New gods join ancient ceremonies. Mayapan's influence extends through tribute and trade rather than conquest. Vassal cities maintain their independence while acknowledging the capital's supremacy. The Maya learn to rule with a lighter touch. Power becomes persuasive rather than coercive. The city's defenses reflect the troubled times. Massive walls surround the urban core. Watchtowers scan the horizon for threats. The Maya have learned that even the greatest cities need protection. Safety becomes architecture. Calendrical ceremonies at Mayapan draw participants from across the Maya world. The New Year celebrations last for days. The Maya continue to mark time with elaborate rituals. The calendar remains the heartbeat of civilization. The Copan family's palace complex demonstrates the Confederation's wealth. Murals depict scenes from across the Maya world. Architecture incorporates styles from many regions. The ruling family presents itself as guardians of all Maya traditions. Water management at Mayapan reaches new sophistication. The city's size demands elaborate systems for collection and distribution. Underground channels carry water throughout the urban area. The Maya turn necessity into engineering art. The Confederation's decline begins gradually. Vassal cities grow restless. The Xiu family challenges Kokam authority. What begins as political rivalry becomes personal vendetta. The Maya learn that unity requires constant tending. Around 1440, the Confederation collapses in violence. The Xiu massacre the Kokam leadership during a ceremony. Mayapan's walls cannot protect against betrayal from within. The last great Maya capital falls not to foreign conquest, but to internal strife. The city's abandonment marks the end of Maya political unity. The northern Maya world fragments into competing kingdoms that will never reunite. The age of great cities passes. The Maya must learn new ways to survive. But Mayapan's legacy endures. The Confederation's model influences later Maya political thought. The idea that many can rule together better than one alone plants seeds for future generations. The Maya gift for adaptation finds new expression. Spanish contact and resistance. The great ocean carries strange visitors to Maya shores. Their boats tower like floating temples. Their skin gleams pale as bone. Their weapons thunder like sky gods. The year is 1511, and the Maya world will never be the same. A Spanish ship breaks apart on Caribbean reefs. Survivors wash ashore on the Yucatan coast, gifts from the sea to Maya curiosity. Some die quickly, others become slaves. But two men survive to witness the collision of worlds, Geronimo de Aguilar and Gonzalo Guerrero. Aguilar keeps his Spanish identity. He counts the days until rescue. He prays to his foreign god. He dreams of returning to the world he knows. The Maya keep him alive, but apart. He remains a stranger in their land. Guerrero chooses differently. He learns Maya languages. He takes a Maya wife. He raises Maya children. He becomes a war captain, teaching the Maya to fight Spanish tactics. The newcomer becomes more Maya than the Maya themselves. In 1519, Hernan Cortés arrives with 500 men and horses. The conquistador seeks gold and glory. He finds instead a civilization more complex than his wildest dreams. The Maya cities astonish him with their size and sophistication. The Maya see Spanish horses and think the world has changed. These are not the animals they know. Rider and mount seem joined like centaurs from their deepest myths. The Spanish bring not just new weapons, but new ways of being in the world. Francisco Hernández de Córdoba lands first in 1517. Maya warriors attack his expedition at Champoton. Spanish steel meets Maya obsidian. Gunpowder roars against war cries. The conquistador retreats, wounded and humbled. The Maya prove they will not yield easily. The Spanish hunger for gold that the Maya cannot satisfy. Maya wealth lies in jade, feathers, and cacao. The newcomers cannot see value in these treasures. Both sides discover that wealth means different things to different peoples. Disease arrives with the Spanish like an invisible army. Smallpox, measles, typhus. illnesses unknown to Maya healers. Bodies that survive jungle fevers and highland cold cannot resist these foreign plagues. And the Maya die in numbers that stagger the mind. The Bataba Vikab welcomes Spanish visitors with curiosity rather than fear. He offers gifts and friendship. The Maya tradition of hospitality extends even to these strange beings. Kindness meets conquest with tragic consequences. Maya prophets speak of returning gods. The books of Chilambalam whisper of change coming from the east. Some Maya see Spanish arrival as fulfillment of prophecy. Others recognize it as the end of their world. The Spanish established Mérida in 1542, building their city on the ruins of To. Maya stones become Spanish foundations. The conquerors literally build their new world on top of the old. Architecture becomes archaeology. Francisco de Montejo fights for decades to subdue the Maya. 3 generations of his family pour their lives into the conquest. The Maya prove that jungle warfare favors those who know the land. Resistance becomes a way of life. The encomienda system grants Spanish colonists the right to Maya labor. Entire communities become property of Spanish masters. The Maya learn that their bodies now belong to others. Freedom becomes memory. Spanish friars arrive to save Maya souls. They burn Maya books as works of the devil. Libraries that took centuries to create disappear in hours. The Maya watch their written history turn to ash and smoke. The Maya adapt their resistance to Spanish tactics. They abandon their cities and melt into the jungle. Guerrilla warfare replaces set battles. The Spanish control the roads, but not the forests. The Maya learn to be invisible. Hidden ceremonies preserve Maya religion. Spanish gods receive public worship, while Maya deities accept secret offerings. The Maya become masters of dual existence. They learn to live in 2 worlds simultaneously. The Spanish introduce cattle and horses to Maya lands. New animals change the landscape. Pastures replace cornfields. The Maya ecosystem adapts to foreign species. Change affects every living thing. Maya nobility learns Spanish ways to preserve their status. They adopt Spanish names and Spanish clothes. Some marry Spanish spouses. The Maya elite discovers that collaboration can be another form of resistance. The tribute system drains Maya communities of their wealth. Corn, cotton, cacao, and labor flow to Spanish hands. The Maya economy becomes oriented toward Spanish needs. Independence becomes impossible. Yet the Maya endure. In remote villages, old ways persist. Children learn ancient stories. Farmers plant corn by traditional calendars. The Maya prove that conquest cannot touch everything. Culture survives in hidden places. Spanish colonial society creates new categories of people. Mestizos, mulattoes, and castas emerge from the mixing of populations. The Maya world becomes more complex. Identity becomes layered and fluid. The Maya language adapts to Spanish influence. New words enter ancient vocabularies. Spanish concepts require Maya expression. Language becomes a bridge between worlds, even as it changes both. Resistance takes many forms. Some Maya flee to unconquered territories. Others accept Spanish rule while preserving their traditions. Still others openly rebel. The Maya prove that survival requires many strategies. The fall of Nojpeten, deep in the Peten rainforest on an island in Lake Chichen Itza, the last free Maya kingdom makes its final stand. Nojpeten, the Itza capital, has resisted Spanish conquest for over 150 years. The year is 1697. The age of independence is about to end. The Itza people fled to this island sanctuary when Chichen Itza fell. For centuries, they built their city in the lake, connected to the mainland by raised causeways. The water becomes their protection. Spanish horses cannot swim. Spanish cannons cannot reach them easily. Canek rules as the last Maya king. His name means serpent in the ancient tongue. Like his ancestors, he speaks with the gods and commands the seasons. The Spanish see him as a pagan chief. The Maya know him as the final guardian of their freedom. The Spanish have tried to conquer Nojpeten many times. Each expedition fails. The jungle devours Spanish soldiers. Disease claims more lives than battle. The Maya prove that some places resist conquest simply by being themselves. Franciscan friars arrive first, seeking souls rather than gold. They build churches and preach sermons. Some Itza listen politely. Others ignore them completely. The Maya have learned to accommodate visitors without accepting their message. The Itza maintain trade relations with Spanish colonies. They exchange forest products for metal tools. Commerce continues even as politics remain opposed. The Maya prove that business can transcend ideology. Spanish authorities grow impatient with this independent kingdom. New Spain cannot be complete while free Maya still exist. That the colonial government prepares a final campaign. This time, they will not accept failure. The Itza island city amazes Spanish observers. Stone temples rise from the jungle like ancient dreams. Causeways connect different parts of the settlement. The Maya have created a Venice in the rainforest. Architecture adapts to environment. Maya prophecy speaks of change coming in the year 1697. The books of Chilam Balam predict the end of the Itza kingdom. Some Maya see Spanish arrival as fulfillment of destiny. Others prepare to fight fate itself. Martin de Urzúa leads the final Spanish expedition. He brings cannons and experienced soldiers. The Spanish have learned from previous failures. They approach the Maya kingdom with new tactics and grim determination. The jungle resists Spanish advance. Insects swarm the invaders. Fever claims Spanish lives. The Maya homeland defends itself without human help. Nature becomes the first line of defense. Spanish engineers build a galley on the lakeshore. The boat carries cannons that can reach the island city. The Maya watch Spanish ingenuity overcome their water barrier. Technology conquers geography. The final battle begins on March 13, 1697. Spanish cannons roar across the water. Maya warriors respond with arrows and spears. The lake surface churns with the violence of two worlds colliding. Canec's temple burns under Spanish bombardment. The palace where Maya kings ruled for centuries becomes rubble. The Itza watch their sacred center die. The heart of their world stops beating. Some Itza fight to the death. Others flee into the jungle. Still others surrender to Spanish terms. The Maya prove that even in defeat, they can choose different paths. Resistance takes many forms. Spanish soldiers discovered gold in the Itza temples. The Maya valued the metal for its beauty, not its worth. The Spanish see treasure where the Maya saw decoration. Different cultures create different values. Canec himself disappears during the battle. Some say he died fighting. Others claim he escaped into the forest. Still others believe he transformed into a jaguar and vanished. The Maya king becomes legend. The Spanish destroy Itza temples and idols. They build a church on the island's highest point. Christian crosses replace Maya stelae. The conquerors literally build their god's house on the ruins of Maya deities. The fall of Nojpeten marks the end of Maya political independence. No free Maya kingdom remains. The Spanish finally achieve what they began attempting in 1517. The conquest becomes complete after 180 years. But the Maya people survive. They scatter into the jungle. They preserve their languages and traditions. They adapt to Spanish rule while maintaining their identity. The Maya prove that kingdoms can fall while cultures endure. Some Itza return to the lake years later. They find their island occupied by Spanish settlers. The Maya become strangers in their ancestral home. Displacement becomes part of the survival story. The ruins of Nojpeten sink into the jungle. Vines cover the broken stones. The rainforest reclaims what the Maya built. Nature erases the evidence of human dreams and struggles. Yet the lake remembers. In its depths lie the treasures the Itza cast into the water rather than surrender to Spanish hands. The Maya gods still receive offerings, though their temples have fallen. The sacred persists beneath the surface. The name Chichen Itza preserves the memory of the last Maya kingdom. Travelers still visit the lake where freedom made its final stand. The Maya story continues even after the ending. Some defeats become victories of the spirit. Maya survival in colonial times. The temples stand empty. The king's palace holds Spanish governors. The ball courts grow silent. But the Maya people continue. In villages scattered across the countryside, ancient ways adapt to colonial realities. Survival becomes an art form. Spanish law divides Maya communities into reducciones, concentrated settlements that make administration easier. The Maya must abandon their scattered homesteads and gather in planned towns. Spanish order replaces Maya patterns. Geometry conquers organic growth. The church bells ring where conch shells once called. Maya people learn to cross themselves and recite prayers in Latin. They attend Mass and receive communion. But in forest shrines, older ceremonies continue. The Maya become masters of double faith. Colonial officials appoint Maya nobles as intermediaries. These principales collect tribute and maintain order. Spanish authority rules through Maya faces. The nobility learns to serve two masters. Collaboration becomes a survival strategy. The encomienda system grants Spanish colonists the right to Maya labor. Entire communities become property assigned to individual Spaniards. The Maya work Spanish fields and tend Spanish herds. Their bodies belong to others, but their spirits remain free. Maya farmers must grow new crops for Spanish markets. Wheat competes with corn in the fields. Cattle graze on land that once supported forests. The Maya ecosystem adapts to foreign demands. Change reaches even the soil. Traditional Maya ceremonies hide beneath Christian festivals. The Day of the Dead preserves ancient ancestor worship. Christmas rituals echo older solstice celebrations. The Maya calendar continues its ancient count behind Spanish dates. Spanish becomes the language of power and advancement. Maya children learn Castilian in church schools. The nobility adopts Spanish names and titles. But in the home, Maya languages survive. Mothers teach their children in the old tongues. Maya women weave Spanish motifs into traditional patterns. Huipils display new designs while maintaining ancient structures. Textile arts adapt to colonial aesthetics. Creativity becomes resistance through beauty. The Spanish introduce new diseases that devastate Maya populations. Smallpox, measles, and typhus kill millions. Maya healers learn to treat unknown illnesses. Survival requires new medical knowledge. Adaptation becomes desperate. Maya scribes secretly preserve ancient books. They hide codices from Spanish book burnings. New texts combine traditional knowledge with colonial experiences. Writing becomes an act of cultural preservation. Memory finds refuge in hidden pages. Cofradías, religious brotherhoods, allow Maya communities to maintain their social organization. These Catholic institutions preserve pre-Columbian leadership patterns. Spanish forms contain Maya content. Adaptation wears colonial masks. Maya merchants continue trading despite Spanish restrictions. Forest products flow to colonial markets. Cacao, vanilla, and precious woods generate income. Commerce provides limited independence. Trade becomes a path to survival. Spanish sexual practices create new social categories. Mestizos, children of Spanish fathers and Maya mothers, inhabit a world between cultures. They become bridges and barriers simultaneously. Identity becomes complex and fluid. Maya artisans learn Spanish techniques while maintaining traditional designs. Stone carvers create colonial churches with Maya decorative elements. The arts become sites of cultural negotiation. Beauty transcends conquest. Tribute demands drain Maya communities of their wealth. Corn, cotton, and labor flow to Spanish hands. The Maya economy becomes oriented toward colonial needs. Independence becomes increasingly difficult. Some Maya communities flee to remote areas beyond Spanish control. They establish refugee settlements in the deep jungle. Geography becomes resistance. Distance preserves freedom. Maya midwives continue ancient birth rituals alongside Catholic baptism. Newborns receive blessing from both traditions. Life begins with dual identity. The Maya ensure their children belong to both worlds. Traditional Maya festivals adapt to Christian calendar. Patron saint celebrations incorporate ancient dances and music. Spanish dates frame Maya content. Time becomes a negotiated territory. The Spanish colonial system creates new forms of Maya leadership. Caciques and governors learn to navigate between Spanish demands and Maya needs. Leadership becomes a balancing act. Survival requires political skill. Maya farmers preserve traditional agricultural techniques while adopting Spanish tools. Metal implements increase productivity. Crop rotation adapts to Spanish demands. Innovation serves preservation. Colonial courts hear Maya legal cases in Spanish law, but traditional Maya justice continues in village settings. Legal pluralism emerges from cultural collision. Order becomes layered and complex. Maya languages absorb Spanish vocabulary while maintaining their grammatical structures. New words enter ancient patterns. Linguistic change reflects cultural adaptation. Language becomes a living record of survival. Spanish colonial art employs Maya craftsmen. Churches display indigenous skill within European designs. The sacred arts become collaborative. Beauty emerges from cultural fusion. Maya communities maintain traditional medicine alongside Spanish treatments. Healers combine ancient plant knowledge with colonial techniques. Health becomes a synthesis of traditions. Survival requires all available wisdom. The Maya prove that conquest cannot touch everything. In hidden valleys and remote villages, the old ways persist. Children learn ancient stories. Farmers consult traditional calendars. The Maya demonstrate that culture can survive even the most complete defeats. The Caste War and Modern Resistance. The year is 1847. The Maya people of Yucatan have endured 3 centuries of Spanish rule. They have paid tribute, they have worked Spanish fields, they have built Spanish churches, but now their patience ends. The caste war begins with the fury of the oppressed. The spark comes from Valladolid. Maya servants kill their Spanish masters. The rebellion spreads like wildfire through the villages. Centuries of resentment explode into violence. The Maya have learned Spanish military tactics. Now they turn this knowledge against their teachers. Cecilio Chi leads the Eastern Maya forces. His army captures town after town. Spanish colonists flee toward Merida and Campeche. The Maya reclaim their homeland with machetes and captured rifles. The tables turn with stunning speed. Jacinto Pat commands the Western Maya armies. His forces advance on Merida itself. The colonial capital prepares for siege. Spanish authorities panic. They offer desperate concessions. But the Maya want more than reform. They want their freedom. The Maya armies control most of Yucatan by 1848. Only Merida and Campeche remain in Spanish hands. The colonists prepare to abandon the peninsula entirely. Ships wait in the harbors. The Maya seem on the verge of complete victory. Then the rains come. It is planting season. Maya warriors must return to their fields. Corn needs tending. The ancient agricultural cycle calls louder than the war drums. The Maya choose survival over conquest. They plant their crops and let the Spanish recover. The tide turns. Spanish reinforcements arrive from Mexico. The Maya lose their advantage of surprise. The war becomes a grinding struggle. Villages change hands repeatedly. The Maya learn that revolution requires more than initial success. The Maya develop new tactics. They abandon pitched battles for guerrilla warfare. The jungle becomes their ally. Spanish soldiers march into green ambushes. The Maya prove that their homeland favors its children. The talking cross appears in the forest. Maya people gather around this miraculous oracle. The cross speaks in Maya tongues. It promises victory to the faithful. The Maya create a new religion from their desperation. Faith becomes a weapon of war. Chan Santa Cruz becomes the Maya capital. The sacred cross rules over a free Maya state. The Maya organize their own government. They elect their own officials. They prove they can govern themselves. Independence becomes more than a dream. The Maya establish their own trade networks. They deal directly with British merchants in Belize. Arms and ammunition flow to Maya forces. The Maya learn to be international diplomats. They prove that small nations can find great allies. The Cruzab, followers of the cross, maintain Maya independence for decades. They control the eastern forests. Spanish armies cannot dislodge them. The Maya create a state within a state. Resistance becomes institutionalized. The Maya develop their own military ranks and discipline. Generals replace traditional chiefs. The Maya army becomes a professional force. They prove that organization strengthens resistance. Structure serves freedom. Maya women join the struggle. They carry messages and supplies. They nurse wounded warriors. They keep the rebellion alive. The Maya prove that liberation requires everyone's participation. Revolution becomes a family affair. The Mexican government finally recognizes Maya autonomy in 1893. Chan Santa Cruz becomes a legal Maya territory. The Maya achieve through persistence what they could not win through war. Diplomacy succeeds where force failed. The Maya preserve their language and customs in their free territory. Children learn to read and write in Maya. Traditional ceremonies continue openly. The Maya prove that political independence serves cultural preservation. Modern technology gradually penetrates Maya territory. Roads connect isolated villages. Schools teach Spanish alongside Maya. The modern world arrives slowly but inevitably. The Maya must adapt once again. The Mexican Revolution of 1910 brings new changes. The Maya find themselves curted by competing factions. They learn to navigate modern Mexican politics. Survival requires new skills in a changing world. The Maya territory eventually integrates with the Mexican state. But Maya culture survives the transition. Languages persist. Traditions continue. The Maya prove that cultural independence can survive political integration. Contemporary Maya movements draw inspiration from the caste war. Indigenous rights activists remember Maya resistance. The struggle for autonomy continues in new forms. The Maya prove that the fight for dignity never truly ends. The talking cross still speaks to believers. Pilgrims visit the sacred site. The Maya maintain their connection to the miraculous. Faith transcends political boundaries. The sacred persists through all changes. Modern Maya communities preserve traditional agriculture while adapting to market economies. Cornfields flourish alongside cash crops. The Maya prove that ancient wisdom can inform modern choices. Adaptation serves preservation. The caste war becomes a symbol of indigenous resistance throughout the Americas. Other native peoples study Maya tactics. The Maya example inspires struggles for justice everywhere. Local resistance becomes universal inspiration. The Maya prove that small peoples can maintain their dignity against overwhelming odds. They show that culture provides strength for political struggle. They demonstrate that resistance can take many forms. The Maya gift for survival continues to inspire the world. Rediscovery and archaeological gold rush. The jungle keeps its secrets well. Vines strangle ancient palaces. Tree roots crack temple walls. For centuries, the Maya ruins sleep beneath green blankets. Then curiosity awakens. The outside world discovers what the local people never forgot. John Lloyd Stephens arrives in 1839 with artist Frederick Catherwood. They bring cameras, notebooks, and insatiable curiosity. Stephens writes while Catherwood draws. Together, they introduce the Maya world to European and American audiences. Wonder travels through words and images. Catherwood's lithographs astound viewers. Temples emerge from jungle shadows. Carved monuments display hieroglyphs that no one can read. The Maya world enters European consciousness through art. Beauty becomes archaeology's ambassador. The books they publish spark international fascination. Incidents of Travel in Central America becomes a bestseller. Suddenly, everyone wants to visit Maya ruins. Tourism begins where scholarship started. Curiosity creates commerce. Local Maya guides lead foreign visitors through ancient cities. They know the ruins intimately. Their ancestors built these temples. But now they watch strangers claim credit for discovering what was never lost. Discovery becomes a colonial concept. Désiré Charnay arrives from France with early photography equipment. His cameras capture images that drawings cannot match. The Maya ruins become mechanical memories. Photography makes archaeology scientific. Technology serves preservation. Teoberto Mahler documents Maya sites with German precision. He maps ruins and catalogs monuments. His photographs become invaluable records. Many sites he documents later suffer destruction. His camera preserves what time and human greed will destroy. The search for Maya treasure begins in earnest. Amateur archaeologists dig with shovels instead of brushes. They seek gold and jade for private collections. Museums compete for Maya artifacts. Scholarship competes with commerce for ancient treasures. Edward Thompson dredges the sacred cenote at Chichen Itza. His crude diving equipment brings up gold, jade, and human bones. The sacred well yields its secrets to mechanical intrusion. Ancient offerings become modern museum pieces. Alfred Maudslay applies scientific methods to Maya archaeology. He creates accurate drawings and detailed photographs. His document sets new standards for archaeological recording. Science begins to replace treasure hunting. Methodology serves understanding. The Carnegie Institution launches systematic excavations at Maya sites. Professional archaeologists replace amateur diggers. Scientific questions guide research instead of treasure hunting. Archaeology becomes a discipline rather than an adventure. Sylvanus Morley dedicates his life to Maya studies. He catalogs inscriptions and interprets calendars. His enthusiasm inspires a generation of Maya scholars. Passion creates expertise. Dedication serves discovery. Mexican archaeologists join international efforts. Alberto Ruz Luillier discovers Pacal's tomb at Palenke. Mexican scholarship proves that Maya archaeology belongs to Maya descendants. Local knowledge enriches international understanding. The looting of Maya sites accelerates with increased interest. Monuments disappear into private collections. Temples suffer damage from careless excavation. Archaeological interest brings archaeological destruction. Discovery threatens preservation. Maya codices surface in European libraries. These bark paper books contain centuries of Maya knowledge. Scholars struggle to decode their meaning. The Maya writing system presents its greatest challenge. Understanding requires patient scholarship. Early attempts at decipherment focus on calendars and astronomy. Numbers prove easier to understand than narrative texts. Maya mathematical precision impresses scholars. The Maya reputation for scientific achievement grows with each translation. Museums worldwide compete for Maya artifacts. The Metropolitan Museum, the British Museum, and European institutions acquire Maya treasures. International collections fragment Maya cultural heritage. Global interest scatters local patrimony. Archaeological expeditions become military operations. Hundreds of workers clear jungle from ancient cities. Steam shovels replace hand tools. Efficiency serves discovery, but subtlety suffers. Mechanical methods miss delicate details. The Maya attract popular fascination beyond scholarly circles. Adventure novels feature Maya temples. Hollywood films use Maya ruins as exotic backdrops. Popular culture transforms archaeology into entertainment. Academic discovery becomes public spectacle. Scientific journals publish Maya research for scholarly audiences. Professional archaeologists debate Maya chronology and interpretation. Academic discourse creates expert knowledge. Scholarship serves understanding rather than entertainment. Government involvement in Maya archaeology increases. Mexico and Guatemala establish national archaeological institutions. Legal protection for archaeological sites begins. Nations claim their ancient heritage. Politics enters archaeology. International cooperation in Maya studies develops slowly. Scholars share information across national boundaries. The Maya world transcends modern political divisions. Academic collaboration serves comprehensive understanding. Private collectors drive the market for Maya artifacts. Wealthy individuals compete for museum-quality pieces. Economic demand fuels archaeological looting. Money corrupts scientific methodology. Commerce threatens scholarship. Photography revolutionizes Maya documentation. Detailed images preserve information that words cannot capture. Visual records become essential archaeological tools. Technology serves memory. Images preserve what time destroys. The search for the lost Maya civilization captures public imagination. Journalists write about mysterious vanished peoples. The Maya become exotic others rather than continuing communities. Popular misconceptions obscure living Maya reality. Archaeological techniques improve with each expedition. Stratigraphy replaces random digging. Careful recording replaces hasty collecting. Scientific method serves historical understanding. Methodology creates reliable knowledge. Early archaeological reports often reflect colonial attitudes. Maya achievements are attributed to foreign influences. Indigenous creativity is minimized or ignored. Academic interpretation reflects cultural bias. Scholarship serves ideology as well as truth. The establishment of archaeological museums creates permanent homes for Maya artifacts. Collections become accessible to researchers and the public. Museums serve education and preservation. Institution building supports scholarship. Maya archaeology attracts international funding. Universities and foundations support long-term research projects. Financial investment serves intellectual discovery. Money makes scholarship possible on unprecedented scales. The archaeological gold rush eventually develops ethical standards. Professional organizations establish codes of conduct. Preservation begins to balance discovery. Scholarship learns to serve Maya heritage as well as academic curiosity. Breaking the code, Maya writing reborn. For centuries, Maya hieroglyphs guard their secrets. Scholars stare at carved symbols and see only mystery. The writing covers temple walls, fills stone books, decorates pottery, but the voice of the ancient Maya remains silent. Then slowly, patiently, the code begins to break. Diego de Landa burns Maya books in 1562. But the Spanish bishop also creates a key to their meaning. He forces Maya scribes to explain their writing system. His alphabet contains errors, but it plants seeds of understanding. Destruction and preservation walk hand in hand. Constantine Rafinesque makes the first serious attempt at decipherment in 1827. He recognizes that Maya writing represents a complete system, not just pictures. His insights go largely unnoticed. Truth often arrives before the world is ready to listen. Ernst Furstemann studies Maya codices in European libraries. He cracks the Maya number system and calendar calculations. Mathematics proves easier to decode than language. Numbers speak across cultures more clearly than words. The bar and dot system yields its secrets first. Maya mathematics uses elegant simplicity. 20 becomes the base instead of 10. 0 appears centuries before Europe discovers it. Maya numerical genius becomes undeniable. Goodman, Martinez, and Thompson correlate Maya dates with Christian calendars. The GMT correlation allows scholars to place Maya events in historical time. Chronology becomes possible. The Maya past gains temporal precision. Tatiana Proskouriakoff revolutionizes Maya studies in the 1960s. She proves that Maya inscriptions record historical events, not just astronomical data. Real people emerge from stone monuments. History replaces mythology in Maya studies. Yuri Norisov, working in Moscow, makes the crucial breakthrough. He demonstrates that Maya writing combines phonetic and ideographic elements. Symbols can represent sounds as well as concepts. The Maya writing system proves more sophisticated than anyone imagined. Maya hieroglyphs use rebus principles. A picture of a tooth, ni, can represent the sound ni in other words. Maya scribes create puns, huns in stone. Wordplay becomes a tool of communication. Humor serves literacy. The discovery that Maya glyphs represent spoken language changes everything. Scholars begin to hear ancient Maya voices. Personal names appear on monuments. Individual rulers emerge from anonymity. History becomes personal. Linda Schelle and David Stewart push decipherment forward rapidly. They read royal names, dynastic histories, and war accounts. Maya kings become real people with real stories. Ancient politics emerge from archaeological obscurity. The Maya writing system proves incredibly complex. Over 800 different signs exist. Scribes could write the same word in multiple ways. Artistic variation serves linguistic flexibility. Complexity reflects sophistication. Maya scribes sign their work like artists. Personal names appear on painted vessels and carved monuments. Individual creativity emerges from ancient anonymity. Artists become people rather than anonymous craftsmen. Royal propaganda fills Maya inscriptions. Kings glorify their achievements and justify their power. Maya texts prove as biased as any political document. Ancient spin serves eternal purposes. Maya literature emerges from deciphered texts. Poetry appears on palace walls. Metaphors span centuries. The Maya prove to be accomplished writers, not just literary beauty transcends time. Religious texts reveal Maya theological sophistication. Creation myths, ritual instructions, and prophecies fill sacred books. Maya spiritual thinking proves as complex as their architecture. Religious depth matches artistic achievement. Historical chronicles emerge from stone inscriptions. Wars, alliances, and royal successions become documented fact. Maya history replaces Maya mystery. Archaeology becomes biography. The decipherment reveals Maya cultural complexity. Multiple languages appear in hieroglyphic texts. Regional variations reflect political diversity. Unity and diversity coexist in Maya writing. Complexity serves comprehension. Maya mathematical texts reveal astronomical precision. Eclipse tables, planetary cycles, and calendar calculations demonstrate scientific sophistication. Maya learning rivals any ancient civilization. Knowledge serves practical and sacred purposes. Legal documents emerge from Maya texts. Land grants, tribute lists, and trade agreements reveal economic systems. Maya business proves as sophisticated as Maya art. Commerce requires accurate record keeping. Personal letters appear on painted pottery. Maya nobles send messages across space and time. Individual voices speak from ancient vessels. Private communication becomes public archaeology. Maya historical writing proves remarkably accurate. Archaeological evidence confirms textual claims. Kings rule when inscriptions say they do. Wars happen where texts locate them. Maya chroniclers prove reliable historians. The decipherment process accelerates with computer assistance. Digital databases allow scholars to compare texts rapidly. Technology serves traditional scholarship. Modern tools unlock ancient wisdom. Maya writing workshops train new generations of epigraphers. Graduate students learn to read hieroglyphs. The Maya writing tradition finds new practitioners. Ancient literacy serves modern scholarship. Native Maya speakers contribute to decipherment efforts. Their linguistic knowledge illuminates ancient texts. Living languages unlock dead writing. Cultural continuity serves archaeological understanding. The ethical implications of decipherment become clear. Maya texts belong to Maya people, not just scholars. Academic translation serves cultural preservation. Knowledge returns to its creators. Maya writing reveals universal human concerns. Love, loss, ambition, and fear fill ancient texts. Time cannot erase fundamental human experiences. Ancient writing speaks to modern hearts. The decipherment of Maya writing ranks among archaeology's greatest achievements. A lost voice speaks again after centuries of silence. Human ingenuity unlocks human creativity. The Maya speak to us across the centuries. Digital archives preserve Maya texts for future study. Online databases make hieroglyphic inscriptions globally accessible. Technology serves preservation and access. Ancient knowledge finds modern distribution. The Maya writing system influences contemporary understanding of human literacy. Complex scripts can develop independently in different cultures. Human creativity finds similar solutions to communication challenges. Maya achievement illuminates human potential. Legacy in stone and sky. The jungle grows quiet in the evening light. Ancient temples catch the last rays of sun. Shadows lengthen across plaza stones where kings once walked. The Maya cities rest in green embrace, but their voice still whispers through the trees. At Tikal, the temple of the Grand Jaguar pierces the forest canopy. Howler monkeys call from its heights. Toucans nest in its carved facades. The Maya builders created not just monuments, but ecosystems. Architecture becomes habitat for countless lives. The ball court at Chichen Itza echoes with phantom games. Tourists clap their hands and hear the Quetzal's call returned by ancient acoustics. The Maya designed their sacred spaces to speak with divine voices. Stone becomes sound across the centuries. Palenke's palace tower still tracks celestial movements. Venus appears in its calculated windows. The winter solstice lights its inner chambers. Maya astronomy continues its ancient observations. Time keeps its sacred appointments. The cenotes remain sacred to Maya people today. Offerings still sink into their depths. Prayers still rise from their edges. The Maya connection to the divine continues unbroken. Sacred geography transcends political change. Modern Maya weavers incorporate ancient patterns into contemporary textiles. Geometric designs that once decorated temple walls now adorn traditional clothing. The Maya artistic tradition flows like water, finding new channels but keeping its essential nature. The Maya calendar specialists still track the ancient cycles. Daykeepers in highland Guatemala maintain traditional counts. The long count continues its patient measurement of cosmic ages. Time remains sacred, mathematical, eternal. Maya languages survive and thrive. Over 6 million people speak Maya tongues today. Children learn ancient words for modern concepts. The Maya voice adapts to contemporary needs while preserving traditional wisdom. Traditional Maya medicine combines ancient plant knowledge with modern understanding. Healers work with herbs their ancestors discovered. The Maya pharmacological tradition continues to heal bodies and spirits. Ancient wisdom serves contemporary health. Maya farmers still consult traditional calendars for planting. They read the sky for weather signs. They plant corn with ceremonies their grandparents taught them. Agriculture remains sacred practice, not just economic activity. The Maya creation story, the Popol Vuh, speaks to contemporary readers. Its themes of sacrifice, renewal, and cosmic struggle resonate across cultures. Maya literature proves universal while remaining distinctly Maya. Ancient stories illuminate modern lives. Archaeological tourism brings visitors from around the world to Maya sites. Travelers seek connection with ancient wisdom. The Maya achievement inspires wonder across cultural boundaries. Ancient accomplishment serves modern inspiration. Maya resistance to conquest inspires contemporary indigenous movements worldwide. The Zapatista uprising in Chiapas draws strength from Maya identity. Ancient survival strategies inform modern struggles for justice. History serves hope. Contemporary Maya artists blend traditional techniques with modern media. Sculptors work with ancient symbols in new materials. Painters explore Maya mythology in contemporary styles. The artistic tradition evolves while honoring its roots. Maya mathematical concepts influence modern education. Base 20 counting systems offer alternatives to decimal mathematics. The Maya zero teaches philosophical as well as practical lessons. Ancient innovation illuminates contemporary learning. The Maya understanding of cycles influences environmental thinking. Their awareness of natural rhythms offers alternatives to linear progress narratives. Ancient ecological wisdom speaks to contemporary environmental crises. Traditional knowledge serves planetary survival. Maya architectural principles inspire contemporary builders. Architects study Maya techniques for tropical construction. Ancient solutions address modern challenges. Traditional knowledge serves innovative design. The Maya achievement in writing inspires literacy programs in indigenous communities. Native languages gain respect through Maya example. Ancient literacy serves contemporary cultural preservation. Historical achievement validates contemporary identity. Maya astronomy contributes to our understanding of pre-telescopic science. Their naked eye observations rival modern calculations. Ancient precision inspires contemporary wonder at human capability. Historical achievement illuminates human potential. The Maya story becomes a lens for understanding cultural survival. Their ability to adapt while maintaining identity offers lessons for a globalizing world. Ancient flexibility serves contemporary challenges. Historical wisdom guides modern choices. Maya cities demonstrate sustainable urban planning. Their integration with natural systems offers models for contemporary development. Ancient urbanism teaches modern environmental responsibility. Historical practice serves future planning. The Maya legacy transcends archaeological sites and museum displays. It lives in the daily practices of millions of people. It inspires artists, educates children, and challenges assumptions about human capability. The Maya gift to humanity continues giving. In the end, the Maya prove that civilizations never truly die. They transform, adapt, and continue in new forms. The temples may crumble, but the wisdom they represent endures. The Maya voice, once thought lost, speaks more clearly than ever. The stars still wheel overhead as they did when Maya astronomers first calculated their movements. The corn still grows as it did when Maya farmers first domesticated it. The stories still teach as they did when Maya elders first told them around sacred fires. The jungle keeps its ancient secrets, but it also reveals them to those who listen carefully. In the rustle of leaves, in the call of birds, in the play of light and shadow on ancient stones, the Maya world continues. The legacy lives not just in stone and sky, but in the hearts and minds of all who seek to understand the endless capacity of human creativity and endurance. The Maya taught us that time is circular, not linear. Endings become beginnings. Death leads to rebirth. What seems lost can be found again. Their greatest lesson may be that no achievement of human spirit ever truly disappears. It waits, patient as stone, eternal as sky, ready to inspire each new generation of dreamers and builders. The Maya legacy endures, carved in stone, written in the sky, alive in the continuing story of human hope and human achievement. Their voice joins the eternal conversation between earth and heaven, past and future, dream and reality. The Maya spoke, the Maya speak. The Maya will speak as long as humans look up at the stars and wonder what is possible.